Chapter 4460. He would use Xianxia's luck and Qian's luck character to survive this calamity. Even if he suffered a backlash from his luck, he wouldn't be able to care about that. The more he understood the Master of Balance, the more he realized how terrifying his methods were. It could be said that 700 years would determine the life and death of human civilization. That might very well be the greatest calamity that Lu Yin had ever faced. At the same time in the Tianyuan universe, a voice rang out from Chenggo's back. 700 years left. So, once everything here is over, I'll go find her. Soon. No one knew what was going on besides Lu Yin. Even the Master of Balance didn't know that Lu Yin had already found out about his plans and was thinking of a way to deal with them. Scheming was the first step, followed by the second. If the Master of Balance knew, then this was no longer a scheme but a game. This was a game that would determine the survival of human civilization. Lu Yin couldn't afford to lose and was willing to give up everything he had. However, to the Master of Balance, this might just be a simple battle of destruction. The Master of Balance stood on a mountain peak, ready to push down a boulder at any moment to bury everything below. Little did he know that there were people below that he couldn't see, using the boulder as an angle to climb towards him. And they were getting closer and closer. In the Tianyuan universe, where Lu Yin was cultivating, Xianxia saw a miraculous scene. She saw a skeleton walk out of Lu Yin's body, and the power of darkness coiled around it. She saw the surrounding world transform into a starry sky with twinkling stars. One of the dark stars approached the skeleton and merged with it, causing the skeleton's color to change. It now had the dark color of the starry sky, as if the starry sky had been carved into the skeleton. She looked at Lu Yin. Was this the clone that Lu Yin had mentioned? Before entering seclusion, Lu Yin had told her that his clone would appear, and that once it did, he would fall into a deep slumber. Xianxia had never imagined that this clone would be a skeleton. Could a skeleton be a clone? Lu Yin raised a hand and looked at his skeletal arm. The power of the dead stars was fusing together, and if he wanted to accomplish certain things he needed to have power. While he had been thinking about how to use his 9 clones to walk a different path, he had also been thinking about this point. He had been thinking about it while he had been traveling through civilizations, and after spending so much time he had finally come up with an idea. He could use his skeletal clones to cultivate the art of Sirius, but it was different from cultivating the art of Sirius on his own. The self-cultivated Sirius art was to rotate the stars outside, making it seem as if one was in the starry sky. As for the Sirius technique that Baigu cultivated, he did not need so many stars. He only needed one, which was the star of deathly stillness. This star would also be divided into many smaller stars and branded on his bones. For this reason he specially entered the Mirage domain and deduced with Ancestor Chen. With the help of Ancestor Chen's ability to create Sirius technique, he changed the Sirius technique that was specially created for white bones, which was the current one. Sirius technique transformed the deathly stillness into stars and branded them on Baigu's bones. Baigu's body also had deathly stillness stars. These deathly stillness stars were just stripped away, but they had the same characteristics as Baigu's body devouring other deathly stillness stars. This was a characteristic of Sirius technique. It had to be said that Sirius technique was very powerful. It could increase one's cultivation speed in the early stages, and in the middle stages the stars could replace the heavens and the earth. It could do what humans could not, and even now it could be used in conjunction with the Starry Fist and various other powers. If one said that the desolate ancestors' extreme matter would have a negative effect on physical creatures, then there were limitless possibilities. Then Sirius technique could help all living creatures, and there were limitless possibilities for cultivation. The 9 mountains and 8 seas generation was extremely dazzling. The 3 realms and 6 paths were because of the primogenitor. His teachings were invincible and the universe was invincible. Each one of them had created their own power, and the 9 mountains and 8 seas had walked this path purely on their own. After a long time, more than 10 years, Baigu's body completely merged with the deathly stillness stars of Sirius technique. Specks of black light were branded on Baigu's bones. They were separated deathly stillness stars, and they looked like ordinary specks of light. However, these specks of light were rotating. In Xianxia's eyes, Lu Yin looked like a giant who had merged the entire universe into his body. This works. Xianxia was surprised and couldn't help but touch Lu Yin's bones. Lu Yin was speechless. I can teach you if you want to learn. This is the 9 clones technique. Xianxia shook her head in disdain. I don't want to become a skeleton. The 9 clones technique can take any form as long as you like it. I'm a human, why should I take other forms? That makes sense. Master Lu, you'll scare people if you go out like this. Lu Yin smiled, and the corners of his mouth widened. It was terrifying, just like a skeleton. Not long after, Lu Yuan arrived and greeted xianxia before teleporting away with white bone Lu Yin. After they left, xianxia looked at Lu Yin's main body and rubbed her chin, blinking. This is quite interesting. Under the stars, Lu Yuan looked at Lu Yin with a complicated gaze. Are we really going to do this? Lu Yin replied, human civilization has been restricted too severely, and the enemy is closing in. If we don't do this, only destruction awaits us. The unknown is our mortal enemy and will never help us. Even if we make a deal, we can't have too much hope. Patriarch Lu Yuan sighed. The glory of the 9th base made us proud, but it also made us suffer. We were targeted too fiercely. As long as it's safe, there's no upper limit to the square inch, but we can't. Lu Yin smiled. Ancestor, perhaps this is also a chance for us to surpass 9th base. Lu Yuan was stunned. You really dare to say that? Those people are here, right? I brought them here a long time ago. They're all heinous people, and if you didn't want to keep them alive, they would have been killed long ago. I've already created karma for them so that they can be of use before they die. Within a castle in Joy City, violent music caused the sky and earth to tremble. Legoku was immersed in the music when he suddenly received a report that there were road signs. Legoku immediately gave the order to head in the direction of the road signs. Half a year later, Joy City arrived outside of the universe and looked into the distance. My lord, the road signs are coming from here. Legoku stood at the top of the castle, his sunglasses back to normal. His hat was still bright green. This is it. Yo-Yo, it's the power of death that lured us in this direction. Yo-Yo, so it's here. My lord, what should we do? Yo-Yo, let's see what's going on inside. Yes. Not long after, Baigu reported, My lord, many of the creatures in this universe have been bestowed with the bone language like us. Those who haven't are the most ordinary creatures and have no value. Legoku swayed and danced. Yo-Yo, we don't need to do anything. Bring back those bestowed with the bone language. This universe, Yo-Yo, should be rebooted. Yes, my lord. Thud thud thud. Many skeletal creatures landed outside Joy City. They came from the universe civilization in front of them, and most of them were born there. These creatures had been bestowed life by Lu Yin using the bone language. Many of the remaining creatures were in human form, and they were those who had committed heinous crimes in the 3 universes. When Lu Yin bestowed them with the bone language, he also stripped their memories and created karma for them. He made them think that they had been born in this universe and that there had been a war over the control of this universe. However, he was overthinking things. Legoku didn't even ask and allowed them to enter Joy City. The power of death could not be faked. How could a non-dead universe control this power? As for human forms, there were too many of them. Occasionally he would discover human civilizations, but he didn't care. After entering Joy City, he couldn't even enter the castle. He couldn't even report the situation in the 3 universes, let alone these creatures that had been bestowed with the bone language. Lu Yin smoothly entered Joy City in the form of a skeleton clone. He was rather curious. Previously he had been using other skeletons to travel, but now he was walking in Joy City. Looking up, Joy City headed in a certain direction at a speed that surpassed ordinary eternal realms. He was now getting further and further away from the 3 universes. The further away he was, the longer it would take for his consciousness to dissipate. Music boomed and Lu Yin looked towards the castle. It was time for him to display his musical talents. He had specially studied music, and because of this, Mr. Mu had even found a sense of accomplishment as his master. A band entered the castle. Brother, do you want to form a band? A familiar voice asked. Lu Yin slowly turned around and looked towards the river. There, a familiar fish bone was looking at him expectantly. Although it didn't have eyes, Lu Yin knew that it was looking forward to it and even longed for it. Lu Yin smiled. Sure. The fish bone was delighted. Really? That's great, brother. I can do it just by looking at you. Lu Yin was happy as well. I think I can do it too. Aha, you've finally taken the first step. Brother, you must have just entered. I haven't seen you before. Yes, it's my first time here. Nice to meet you. You're welcome. Your brother Fishbone doesn't have much, but other than my musical talent, I'm passionate. Ask me anything you want to know. I know everything. There's nothing I want to know. I just want to look at Sir Lugu Jin up close and listen to his musical talents up close. The Fishbone was excited. Brother, we have the same dream. We're brothers. Lu Yin also laughed. Then let's form a band. I'm looking forward to it. The Fishbone nodded excitedly and jumped onto Lu Yin's shoulder. Actually, I've always had a goal. I've already chosen it, but it's not easy to convince. I'll help you. It's Boss Zhou. Boss Zhou? Oh. Someone cough who has eternal life. Lu Yin was surprised. Eternal life is your goal? That's great. You've given me a surprise. Cough cough. It's just that. It's not easy to convince. I'll help you. How? I don't have much, but other than my musical talent, I'm passionate. No one can reject my passion. This sentence sounds familiar. Don't mind these details. Let's go and find Boss Zhou. Let's go. Let's go. The two skeletons, one human and one fish, walked into the distance. The roar of the music made the river boil. Skeletons walked past them from time to time. The fish bone was filled with anticipation for the future. Its tail was even more jubilant and constantly flapping. Chapter 4461. From time to time it would look at white bones beside it. Fishbone felt that this brother was too perfect. In the past, the people it met either wanted to take a shortcut to enter the castle or had no musical talent at all. Of course, most of them ignored it. Only this brother was passionate, unrestrained, talkative, and honest. Yugu didn't know if his talent in music was as high as Yugu's, but it didn't matter. The city was huge, but with Yugu around, they found Boss Zhou quickly by crossing the river. After the war with the divine world, Boss Zhou's bones were obviously broken, but his aura was no longer silent. Instead, it was more ferocious. Yugu brought Lu Yin over. Boss Zhou, I'm here to see you again. Lu Yin looked ahead, but Boss Zhou didn't even bother with them. He just sat there and didn't know what to do. Yugu greeted him a few more times, but Boss Zhou still ignored him. He looked at Lu Yin helplessly. Lu Yin nodded confidently. I'll do it. Yugu was hopeful. Can you do it? Definitely. Lu Yin was very confident. He had no choice. He had merged into Boss Zhou's body and knew Boss Zhou's memories very well. If he couldn't even do this, what use would he be? He walked in front of Boss Zhou with his back facing Yugu and said slowly, I miss the transfer planet. Boss Zhou suddenly stared at Lu Yin in disbelief. Lu Yin looked up and met Boss Zhou's eyes. I didn't expect to see you from this angle, long time no see. Boss Zhou stared at Lu Yin. Even though he had no eyes, the huge empty eye sockets were staring at him. Who are you? Lu Yin bowed strangely to Boss Zhou. Yugu couldn't understand and looked at him in confusion, but he felt that there was a chance. He had tried to talk to Boss Zhou all these years but to no avail. Now that Lu Yin had attracted Boss Zhou's attention, there was definitely a chance. Boss Zhou's voice changed and became excited. You are a creature from the transfer planet? Lu Yin was silent. I used to be very lowly and could only look up to you. I couldn't get close to the first and second class creatures. By chance I left the transfer planet, but because I was too weak I couldn't get far. On the day of the transfer planet's destruction I was brought here. I saw the destruction with my own eyes. I saw the first and second class creatures turn into skeletons. I saw you destroy them with your own hands. You destroyed all the creatures on the transfer planet. Boss Zhou's body trembled as he stared at Lu Yin. You saw it? Lu Yin nodded. Yes. Of course he had seen it from Boss Zhou's memory. Planet Changing was Boss Zhou's space civilization. Once upon a time, Planet Changing was just a planet. As Boss Zhou continued to grow stronger, Planet Changing was destroyed in a battle with a strong enemy. Boss Zhou then named it Planet Changing after the whole space civilization, and Planet Changing represented the whole space civilization, so naturally, there were all kinds of life forms. It was not a problem for Lu Yin to appear in human form because there was no human civilization in Boss Zhou's memories. However, there were many interstellar civilizations that he had never seen before. As for the first and second phases, they were the pinnacle beings of this space civilization. They were at the peak of Dooku Air and they helped Boss Zhou manage the planet. During the battle with Lu Cheng, Legoku had bestowed the bone language to countless creatures of this space civilization. Boss Zhou couldn't stand the humiliation and personally destroyed all of them. However, he was bestowed with the bone language by Legoku and became another life. The transfer of life form also transferred memories and cognition, which was equivalent to nothing changing. Boss Zhou really wanted to commit suicide, but now he had a body. It was not up to him. No creature could still be autonomous after being bestowed with the bone language. They could have their own thoughts, but they would not be able to harbor the thought of betraying the dead universe. This was extremely sad unless that creature's usage of the power of silence surpassed that of the creature that bestowed the bone language. One heaven and earth annihilation and the other bone language. This eternal life form with strong self-esteem could only stay in Lu Cheng and fight for Lu Cheng even after killing the creatures of his own civilization. Boss Zhou's memories were a shock to Lu Yin. It reminded him of that abyss where countless people used their lives to fill it up, just to get close to that person who was still standing. In the end, it all became a sea of white bones. This boss Zhou was worthy of Lu Yin's respect. However, if they met within the core, he would still be an enemy. Since he was fighting for his civilization, Lu Yin had to consider his own. "I'm sorry," Boss Zhou said in a low voice as his body slowly collapsed. Lu Yin looked at Boss Zhou. "I understand. There's nothing to be sorry about." Boss Zhou shook his head. "For the sake of my civilization, I destroyed everything with my own hands. I thought that even if my civilization was destroyed, I would still be able to preserve my dignity. However, even I was controlled. I'm no longer the Boss Zhou in your memories. I'm just a laughable skeleton, a piece of trash controlled by the dead universe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." It was a great psychological torture for an immortal realm to lower his head and apologize to a non-immortal realm weak creature that used to look up to him. However, perhaps this was a relief for Boss Zhou. Not every life that was given the bone language would lose their humanity like the 100-kill scale. They were still themselves. It was just that they were branded with the label of the dead universe. They could not betray the dead universe and could not even control their own life and death. They could not refuse the orders of the dead universe. Outside of this, they were still themselves. This was different from Lu Yin's understanding of the dead universe. Lu Yin bowed again. It was the kind of etiquette that Yugu had never seen before. "Boss Zhou, can you help me?" Boss Zhou did not understand. Help you? It did not doubt Lu Yin. At this time, who would pretend to be a creature from an alien civilization? What was the benefit? As for why Lu Yin took so long to find it, Lu Yin did not need to find a reason. It could imagine all kinds of reasons by itself. Sometimes, a lie did not come from the liar but from the deceived. Only the deceived could perfect the lie and believe it. Lu Yin pointed at the castle. "I want to go in." Boss Zhou looked at the castle and then at Yugu. "You want to form a band with me?" Lu Yin nodded. "In the past, I dreamed of fighting side by side with you countless times. Now that the planet is gone, there is only you and me. We are not equal in combat power. Then we will fight side by side in music. Enter the castle and defeat the Death Band." The Death Band was the band formed by Legu Kujin. It was also the strongest band in the city. The one that stood at the top of the castle was the Death Band. Boss Zhou did not understand. "Why do you want to enter the castle?" Lu Yin said firmly, "My goal is not to enter the castle. It is to defeat the Death Band and avenge the planet. Even if it is only in music." Legu Kujin cares about music the most. Boss Zhou shouted, "Okay, I will help you." "No, we are helping ourselves." Lu Yin corrected. Boss Zhou was excited. "Yes, we are helping ourselves." He looked at Yugu. "Are you willing to join our band?" Yugu opened its mouth. "This is not right. This is my band. When did it become yours?" Shrouded by shadows, Boss Zhou grabbed Yugu. "I'm asking you, are you willing to join our band?" Yugu looked at Lu Yin for help. Lu Yin clenched his fist. "Work hard." Yugu was speechless. Its tail drooped naturally. "I am willing." "Okay." Boss Zhou was more excited than anyone else. Lu Yin exhaled. With Boss Zhou's addition, the band was still short of one person. There must be at least 4 living beings to form a band. This was Legu Kujin's order. Pa 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 pa. The river reflected the light like fish scales. It was very beautiful. The city was close to a sun, bringing sunlight to this world. Beside the river, Yugu slapped the surface of the river. Boss Zhou used the broken bones to knock against each other. At the same time, he looked at Lu Yin. They were playing music. That's right, they were playing music. Lu Yin was stunned. "Good brother, come and join our rhythm." Although I did not say it, I also like to listen to music occasionally when the planet is changing. "How is it?" "It's okay." Lu Yin really wanted to slap the two of them. How could this be? Where did they get their confidence from? This is called music? Isn't this just slapping and slapping? Also, since it's music, there should be instruments. What's the point of slapping fish bones on the surface of the lake? Boss Zhou was even worse. He used his broken bones to knock against the water. Lu Yin even thought that whistling was a sign of respect. But Yugu thought it was okay. Lu Yin's voice was heavy. "Do you think it's okay?" Yugu raised its upper body. "I said that I have musical talent. How is it? Do you believe me now? Look at the rhythm of the slapping on the surface of the river. Look at the ripples. How many can I accurately control? And this wind, this grass, it's perfect." Boss Zhou also said, "This is rough mine music. It expresses a yearning for nature and the desire for freedom." Lu Yin facepalmed. Must there be more than 4 members to form a band? Yugu said, that's right. This is the standard set by Master Legu Jin. Actually, the 3 of us are enough, but we have to bring one more. Although I haven't heard your music before, I think you can do it. But I don't think you can do it. Lu Yin looked at the castle and his confidence collapsed. He really wanted to enter the castle. Firstly, the castle was the core of Joy City. There must be something inside. Secondly, he could come into contact with Legu Kujin. In the next 700 years or so, he could think of a way to attract the other abyss of the death universe and provoke a forced war against the unknown. All of these had to be done inside the castle. Otherwise, he would not be able to come into contact with Legu Kujin no matter how many years he stayed outside the castle. Time was short. Most importantly, he hoped to replace the band at the castle's entrance and become the only band guarding the castle's entrance. This way he could stop Bane and Eternity from entering and prevent them from revealing the location of the 3 universes. After all, whether or not he could enter the castle was up to the band guarding the entrance. Rumor had it that whoever could beat Legu Kujin in music would become the owner of Joy City. Lu Yin had seen this legend in the memories of many skeleton creatures. Although it was nonsense, it was not impossible. He wanted to try. What if it was true? Chapter 4462. Lu Yin was glad that he had learned music before. He was very confident because the music of Lu Bone's Withered Bones was terrible. It was not serious music at all. It was just a way to release one's emotions. He felt that the music developed by human civilization could beat it. But he was only one person. Even if Yugu and Boss Zhou were to make up the numbers, they should not drag him down. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that they were dragging him down. No wonder Yugu could not form a band after so many years. He regretted finding this guy. Should he kick him out? But Boss Zhou was worse than Yugu. He had merged into Boss Zhou's body before, but he did not see all the memories. He only saw a little. Good brother, come on. Play and become the brightest band in Music City. Yugu was excited. Boss Zhou was excited. We will definitely win. Let's fight side by side. Lu Yin was speechless. Anyway, let's see the strength of the band guarding the castle first. Over the years, he had merged into many skeletal creatures. But compared to the entire Music City, they were just a drop in the ocean. Some of these skeletal creatures might have challenged to enter the castle, but he did not see any memories of this. Every time he searched for memories with a purpose. The river extended in all directions. Following the river, Yugu brought Lu Yin and Boss Zhou to the outside of the castle. This was the closest Lu Yin had been to the castle other than entering through the sewer. At this moment, a band was challenging to enter the castle. The 4 skeletal creatures in the band were very strange. He could not tell what kind of creatures they were at all. As for their music, it was too horrible to look at. The result surprised Lu Yin. That kind of music was actually praised and allowed to enter. Suddenly, Lu Yin's confidence returned. They could even enter. Then what was there to say? He immediately chose a song and asked Yugu and Boss Zhou to play at a certain point. They just needed to cooperate. After all, he was the main person. This is a challenge? But our band only has 3 people? Yugu asked. Lu Yin looked at Boss Zhou. Boss Zhou understood. He grabbed a random skeletal creature and asked it to cooperate. This skeletal creature was naturally very cooperative. Boss Zhou was too terrifying. Soon the band was formed. Lu Yin went up to challenge after a little training. Yugu gave his opinion and said that it was too bad. Lu Yin ignored it. This guy had the face to give his opinion. May I know the name of the band? Lu Yin and the rest looked at each other. Let's call it Fishbone Band. Domineering. It should be called Star Transfer Band. Lu Yin stepped forward. We're called Dream Band. Yugu and Boss Zhou sighed in admiration. Soon they played the music and then they were eliminated. Impossible. Lu Yin looked at the band guarding the castle's gate. You said we failed? The other party was disdainful. You call this music? You are insulting Master Legu Jin. The previous one could still enter, but we failed? Lu Yin couldn't believe his ears. Yugu hurriedly stepped forward. I said no, bro. Your musical talent is too bad. You should go back and practice. Boss Zhou patted Lu Yin's shoulder. It's alright, keep working hard. Success isn't that easy. This wasn't a matter of success and Lu Yin didn't believe it. Let's see how it goes. The 4 members of the band who were guarding the door looked at each other and then began to play the music arrogantly. Just as Lu Yin had guessed, it was just as unpleasant to hear. However, Yugu wagged his tail as if he was enjoying it. Boss Zhou exclaimed in admiration, "Beyond the heavens!" The skeletal creature that had been caught at the last minute shook its head and ran away. He knew that this band that had been formed at the last minute was unreliable. Lu Ying felt as if his worldview was being whipped. Was this even possible? Why did they all enjoy it so much? Alright, he remembered now. Every time he merged into the skeletal creature's body, the creature itself would yearn and approve of Lugugu Jin's music. He had never hated it. It was completely different from what he had heard. Why was it like this? He felt that something was wrong. Lu Ying left silently and sat beside the river, looking at the river surface. In the distance, Yugu wanted to say something but was stopped by Boss Zhou. Forget it, let him be alone for a while. After all, he has suffered such a big blow. Yugu sympathized. I have invited so many creatures to join us over the years, but none of them have such poor musical talent. It's a pity, but I won't give up. Big brother can still be saved. As long as he works hard and strives for improvement, he will definitely improve on the path of music. Boss Zhou nodded. Lu Ying sat by the river and looked at the ripples on the water surface. He felt like he had thought of something, but it was gone in a flash. He closed his eyes and thought quietly. He recalled the feelings of the skeletal creatures that had merged with him. He had never felt this before. In his mind, music was just Lugugu Jin's hobby. There was no need to pay attention to it. He could enter the castle by just learning. But at this moment he realized that it was difficult as ascending to the heavens. This was because the music he knew was completely different from the music Lu Qing knew. Logically speaking, music was not a language. There was no need for translation. Everyone should hear the same thing. But why was there such a big difference? He recalled one by one and sat by the river. For several months, he recalled the feelings of every skeletal creature that had merged with him. This was something he had neglected before. Every time he merged, Lugugu Jin's music would roar through Lu Chen. But every time those creatures were enjoying it, only he was annoyed. If there was a world of music, Lugugu Jin's music was at the end of the world to them. All the skeletal creatures ran in that direction. What were they looking for? Why did they want to run there? Was it because of the power of silence? Was it because Lugugu Jin's bone language? No, music was the language of the spiritual world. Splash. Yugu jumped up and splashed water on Lu Yin's face. Bro, cheer up. You can do it. I can tell from just one look. Lu Yin looked at Yugu. What do you think of my music? Yugu hesitated. Just say it. Trash. Why? Why what? Why do you think it's bad? Does it need a reason? There's no reason. Why is it bad? Bro, don't be upset. It's bad, but you'll get better. I'll help you. Lu Yin said, there has to be a reason for it. Is it bad? Disgust? Or something else? Disgust. Boss Zhou came and sat beside them. Yugu jumped twice. Yes, disgust. Very disgust. Why? Lu Yin was puzzled. Yugu ran away. Why did this bro have so many questions? Was there a reason for disgust? It seemed like he was not convinced. Boss Zhou said, there's no reason. It's disgust. It's an instinctive disgust. What about the music of the band that successfully entered the castle? It's very comfortable and pleasant to listen to. Lu Yin sighed. Let me think about it. Boss Zhou did not disturb him anymore. Yugu came to find him. They decided to use this time to compose a better song. As for Lu Yin, Yugu planned to let him follow the rhythm and not be a burden. Not long after, Yugu slapped his tail and hit the water surface. Boss Zhou occasionally knocked on the broken bones without any rhythm. Lu Yin felt uncomfortable listening to it, but they enjoyed it. The world rumbled. It came from Lugu's withering. He stood at the top of the castle and sang crazily. Countless skeletons cheered. The world was filled with enthusiasm. Even the water was boiling and the air was shaking. Time passed day by day. Lu Yin closed his eyes and listened to Lugu's withering's music quietly. It had been decades since he did not care about it. Later on he felt uncomfortable. Over the decades, Yugu and Boss Zhou did not disturb him and let him sit by the river. Lu Yin heard them talking and felt that he was a hindrance. They would compose a song and let him cooperate with them. It was just like when Lu Yin took out a song and let them cooperate with him. He was a hindrance to the whole team. He was wrong from the beginning. He brought his cognition into this world. In fact, this world had its own understanding of music. Lu Yin did not know whether this understanding came from the civilization or something else. He only knew that the rhythm that he thought was unpleasant was precisely the rhythm of this world's music. Lugu's withering's music was really the sound of the 9 heavens to the creatures of this world. He had been listening to music for decades, trying to grasp the rhythm of this world's music. Now he finally grasped some. This music was emptying oneself. Humans were born because of emotions, so it was complicated. The music created by humans was born from emotions. Many people would be sad or happy when they listened to music. However, the music of this world was the opposite. It was emptying one's emotions and searching for oneself. It was like those creatures that tore apart their flesh and transferred their life form to their bones. Their life form changed. They shed their flesh and shed their cover. The spiritual world also shed its cover and pursued the most instinctive rhythm. The more instinctive it was, the more it was pleasant to listen to and the more it fit this world. It could be said that this music was music, but it was also Legoose stripping away the essence of this world. When Luin figured this out, the walls of his mental state suddenly rose. He knew that he had grasped the context, and he knew why his mental state had been so slow for so many years. Looking at people, things, and objects to comprehend one's mental state. The path was not wrong, but the path also had to be turned. What he needed to see clearly was not just an understanding of the external world, but also a clear understanding of himself. Xiang City's inner and outer appearance had always been telling him this, but he could not see it clearly. He believed that his mental state was only an understanding of the external world. The most obvious understanding of himself was the reminder from Chu Songyun's apprenticeship, which had turned him from an ant into a bird. However, he had not been able to become a man for so many years because he had not truly seen himself clearly. Man was born with a good nature. He had never understood these words before. Everyone was born with nothing, and as time passed, layers and layers would be added, wrapping themselves up tightly. Even they themselves would not be able to unwrap themselves. Luin stood up and raised his arms as if embracing the world. He knew what he had to do. He had to continuously undo the layers of shackles and release the most innate part of himself. He had to use his own language to communicate with the world. This should be the final step in building the high wall of his heart. Chapter 4463. Music couldn't replace language, but most of the time, it had a charm beyond language. The music of this world came from Legujin. This kind of instinctive self affected all the skeletal creatures through Legujin's music until these skeletal creatures affected him. Should he be grateful? If he didn't come here, Luin didn't know how long it would take for him to see this clearly. No matter how many years it took, as long as he could completely let go of the external restraints, he could take that step and walk towards immortality. The standard was to be able to understand the music of this world and create music that belonged to them. Perhaps one day when he created his own music, it would be the moment his mental state wall was completely perfected. In the distance, Yugu and Boss Zhou looked at Luin. Is my big brother stupid? Seems like he figured something out. He's convinced, right? Boss Zhou walked towards Luin. Luin turned around and grinned. His skeleton mouth was a little scary. You're right. My music is very unpleasant. Boss Zhou comforted him. Don't be discouraged. Learn well. One day you'll be able to create a song that will shock Legujin. Yes, big brother. I believe in you. Come, we've tried the rhythm over the years. I'll bring you along. Okay. Pa 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 dong. Something's wrong. I just knocked once. It's just wrong. It feels wrong. Luin pondered. Wrong? He just knocked once and it could sense it. His emotions were completely transmitted through his voice. The sensitivity of this world was beyond his imagination. Yugu said, again. Boss Zhou cracked the bones. Yugu slapped the tail. Luin clapped his hands. Pa, something's wrong again. Why aren't you using stones? I think it's better to clap. You should use stones. Don't worry, I'll teach you. No matter how bad your musical talent is, I won't give up. Luin, we still lack a teammate, Boss Zhou suddenly said. Yugu remembered. Yes, we have to find another teammate now. Otherwise, what if the new teammate is as bad as Big Brother? We can cultivate them together now. Luin said slowly, I have a candidate. I just don't know if the other party is willing to join us. Boss Zhou looked up. I'll reason with it. Far away on the other side of the castle, on the wasteland, two figures sat facing each other, their bodies covered in a thick layer of dust. From time to time, skeletal creatures would pass by, but they did not disturb them. This was Delight City. There was no fighting and scheming, nor was there any competition for cultivation resources. The only resource was the deathly still energy that covered the entire Delight City. It was not difficult to cultivate because no matter how many creatures were bestowed with the bone language, they would not lose much of this deathly still energy. The rest of the cultivation was mostly about the state of mind, consciousness, and so on. Because the flesh and blood were gone, the change in life form was destined to change the direction of cultivation. Many skeletal creatures were like them, staying in the same place without moving. It was unknown what they were cultivating. Of the two figures, one was a skeleton in the shape of a human, and the other was Eternity. Eternal was not in the form of a white skeleton, but he also cultivated the power of deathly stillness. Although he was special here, he did not attract too much attention because it was not that there were no similar existences, but there were very few of them in Joy City. Leku was a skeleton, so most of the creatures in Lu City were skeletons. But that doesn't mean that only bones have the power of silence. He could cultivate. Eternal slowly opened his eyes and looked across. This place is indeed the most suitable for cultivating the power of silence, but it's too slow. Zhu said, the power of silence fills Delight City. Even if those Eternals are cultivating, it is still a power bestowed upon them, so it won't be that fast. You are already very special. I am the same as you. It's not the same. You are not from me. Eternal smiled faintly. The result is the same. Zhu looked deeply at Eternal. I can't see through you. Just because I betrayed you? You betrayed everything within your knowledge. This is not surprising, but you can actually reach this step and reach the same height as me in terms of the power of silence. You might even surpass me. Eternal laughed. You overestimate me and underestimate yourself. Zhu stood up and looked at the castle. No matter what you did in the past, I said that if you help me come back, I will write it off. Now, I just want to remind you that the death universe is completely different from what you have experienced. This is another world. If you still think of betraying, the result will be tragic. Eternal also stood up. I dare not betray the death universe. This civilization has a terror that makes me never dare to betray it. It's good that you know. But the problem is that you still haven't seen Leku Jin. It doesn't care about you at all. Zhu's tone sank. It was definitely not Leku Jin who treated me as a source box. Although I don't have any memories of the death universe, if it were him, he would have come to see me. He must know of my arrival. Eternal shook his head. Not necessarily. He cares more about music, and he just happened to experience a war with the fishing civilization. He suffered great losses. As they spoke, Lu Yin and the others arrived. Zhu and Eternal looked at them. There were 3 skeletons nearby, especially Lu Yin. There were human-shaped skeletons in Delight City, but there were not many of them. There were many human-shaped skeletons in the Death Universe, but there were not many in Delight City. Lu Yin and the others stopped in front of Zhu and Eternal. Yugu asked, brothers want to form a band. Zhu immediately replied, not interested. Eternal sized up Lu Yin and frowned slightly. Lu Yin felt a chill from Eternal's stare. Could this guy have seen through him? That shouldn't be possible. He was now a skeleton, and his entire body only contained the power of silence. Sirius had been modified, so it was not easy to see through him. Still, being stared at was uncomfortable. Boss Zhou, please be reasonable. Boss Zhou walked out and looked down at Zhu and Eternal. Slay took a step back and stared at Boss Zhou with vigilance. When he was at his peak, he had not reached the complete Ku-adversity realm, so he had to avoid the Eternals. The same was true for the Eternals. However, Boss Zhou was not an ordinary Eternals. He was at the peak of the law of the universe. Even Leku Jin had to deal with him personally. He slowly opened his mouth and raised his wolf-shaped claws, enveloping Zhu and Eternal. Let's begin the reasoning. No need, I'm in, Eternal said decisively. Zhu glanced at Eternal, and the claws suddenly came down on him. He hurriedly said, I'm in too. Boss Zhou was satisfied. Both of you are reasonable. Yugu was excited. That's great. We finally have a band. The dream band will definitely win. Lu Yin smiled. Congratulations on joining. Eternal and Zhu looked at each other helplessly. A band? They had never thought that they would be able to join a band in this lifetime. Lu Yin had thought it through. He wanted to transform his state of mind in Lu City and complete the last step. This step was not easy to achieve. The standard was that his song had to be compatible with this world. This was not something that could be done in a short time. It meant that he would not be able to enter the castle in a short time. Since he could not enter the castle, he might as well drag Zhu and Eternal with him. No one could enter. If he could not do it, these two would not be able to do it either. He would drag them outside. The band was formed, and Yugu immediately announced that it would play the song it had created. Lu Yin refused, and his voice was full of sincerity. I want to create my own song. Yugu and Boss Zhou looked at him subconsciously. Eternal and Zhu did not understand the situation, but they knew that this world required music to enter the castle. Could it be that this human-shaped skeleton was very talented in music? Brother, stop fooling around. Lu Yin raised his hand and clenched his fist. You have to get up from where you fell. Yugu was speechless. Now is not the time to talk about this. Let's enter the castle first. I agree, Zhu said. He wanted to enter the castle even in his dreams. Also, from what he heard, this human-shaped skeleton seemed to be very bad at music. This would not do. Lu Yin shouted, "Is our goal to enter the castle or to defeat Legoku Jin? Boss Zhou, tell us." Boss Zhou shouted, "Defeat Legoku Jin." Lu Yin stared at Yugu. "What do you think?" Yugu opened his mouth. "Defeat Legoku Jin. Good, our goal is clear. But can we defeat Legoku Jin with just you guys? Am I not a member of the band? Is the band supported by a creature? Is there only one Legoku Jin in the death band?" But Yugu still wanted to say something. Lu Yin interrupted, "We must all be strong. We must fight side by side and win. The death band, that is our goal." Zhu quickly said, "Entering the castle first is the same." Lu Yin suddenly stared at him. "Shut up, you have no right to speak here." Zhu was furious. He had never been scolded like this before. Boss Zhou moved. He bent down and stared at Zhu. Zhu slowly stepped back and stopped talking. Lu Yin raised his finger and pointed at the castle. "We must all be the strongest. No one can drag us down. Only then can we defeat the death band. Don't abandon, don't give up." Yugu was excited. "Yes, don't abandon, don't give up." Boss Zhou's tone was high. "Don't abandon, don't give up." After that they stared at Zhu and Eternal. Both of them said at the same time, "Don't abandon, don't give up." Lu Yin clapped his hands. "All right, it's decided then. I'll create the song. The worse my musical talent is, the more it proves that when I can enter the castle with my own song, we'll be able to challenge the death band. No, it's when we can defeat the death band. How long would that take?" Zhu wanted to ask, but he wisely shut his mouth. How did he get involved in this? Also, why did these three force them to join? It was inexplicable. The dream band officially set sail, and everyone had their own musical instruments. At first, Lu Yin had felt that Yugu and Elder Zhou's instruments were too casual, but now he knew that following one's heart was the key to oneself. It was the stripping away of all restraints, and this was the essence of music in this world. The more restraints there were in the music, the worse it sounded here. During the dream band's first rehearsal, they realized that the one with the worst musical talent was not Lu Yin, but Eternal. If Lu Yin's rhythm was bad, then Eternal's rhythm was disgusting. Chapter 44-64. Fishbone really wanted to kick Eternal out. Lu Yin's poor musical talent was enough of a headache. The band could have kicked out one person, so kicking Eternal, who was a burden, was just the right thing to do. However, Lu Yin had said that he would not abandon or give up on Eternal. He had no choice but to stay. No matter how bad his musical talent was, he would just learn. Eternal was not surprised. His poor musical talent had long been established. After all, he had been in the city for some time and had been trying to find a way to enter the castle. Although he had not joined the band, he had met people who had invited him, but they had all been scared off by his musical talent. He had comprehended this earlier than Lu Yin. However, he had not expected Lu Yin and the others to keep him. He could not figure it out. There had to be some other reason for these people to target them. Could it be Legu's arrangement? Eternal's musical talent was worse than Lu Yin's. Lu Yin was not surprised at all. In terms of time, Eternal had lived longer than him. In terms of scheming, Eternal had betrayed humanity, betrayed Wang Luo, and betrayed Deathly Silence. Now that he had come here, did that count as betrayal? Eternal had done much more than Lu Yin. If Lu Yin's music had 5 layers of restrictions, then Eternal's music had at least 10. This kind of music was rather unpleasant to listen to in Lu City. Even Zhu could not stand it. In the following time, the band's training entered the right track. Everyone exchanged music with each other. Lu Yin also began to empty himself and remove the heavy shackles on his mental state. He wanted to take the last step to break through the mental wall as soon as possible. It was the same for Eternal. He looked more casual than Lu Yin, but he had gone further than Lu Yin when it came to mental cultivation. The more casual he was, the more difficult it would be. Time passed slowly. 10 years passed and Lu Yin remained motionless. Motionless, the roar of the music had long become the norm. He was feeling Legu's withered self, feeling the essence of this world. At the same time, he was constantly absorbing the power of Deathly Silence to cultivate. This was the only external cultivation method in Lu City. It was not impossible for skeletal creatures to become stronger. One way was to strengthen one's self-awareness and mental state, and the other way was to absorb the power of Deathly Silence. However, the speed of absorbing Deathly Silence's power was too slow. Even the serious technique could not change this. The power of deathly silence in City was viscous and different from the power of deathly silence left behind by the reboot universe. After a few more decades, City discovered a cosmic civilization and the war began. Countless skeletal creatures rushed into the space civilization to fight. This space civilization did not have any eternal life realm experts, and even the bitter adversity experts were few in number. They were no match for the skeletal creatures. The music of Le Skull Withers spread throughout the starry sky, causing countless creatures of flesh and blood to howl in grief. When the universe was rebooted, the war ended. City had replenished a large number of skeletal creatures. Luin had also taken advantage of the war to devour the power of death within many skeletons. During this time they had all split up and killed their way into the other space civilization. Only by devouring the dead energy within the skeletal creatures could his strength increase rapidly. Unfortunately, these skeletal creatures were too weak. They were far less powerful than the Eternal Realm skeletal creatures that Luin had devoured. It was a completely different concept. What was worth noting was that Death wanted to enter Leguku's eye during the war. He wanted to talk to Leguku, but Eternal stopped him. This was what Luin had originally wanted to do. After returning to Delight City, Luin took a deep look at the Eternal, as he could not understand why the Eternal would do such a thing. He was the one who asked Ju to bring him to the Death Universe. Those from Ian must have hoped to cultivate in the Death Universe through execution. However, they stopped execution from seeing Legu wither away. Ju could not figure it out either. After returning, he kept staring at the Eternal. The Eternal did not mind. From time to time he would knock on the original seal. This was the instrument he had chosen. The sound was quite good to Luin, but Yugu and the others all agreed that it was rather unpleasant. Luin hoped that it was unpleasant. This way his music would enter the essence like Yugu and the others, and not be wrapped up in restrictions. Time continued to pass. Another few decades passed. On this day Luin followed Yugu's rhythm and knocked on the stone. Gui was excited. "Brother, your music can finally be heard." Boss Zhou was also happy. "Congratulations." Luin exhaled. "That's good." It had been nearly 100 years since he entered Delight City with his skeletal avatar. It was also nearly 100 years since he had comprehended the essence of this world's music. Finally, some of the restrictions had been removed, allowing the music to reflect itself and have an effect. At the same time, the wall of his state of mind had been raised by a lot. The efficiency was even faster than when he walked through the various space civilizations. Luin sighed and looked at the castle. This was all thanks to Le Skull Withered. If it had not used music to destroy him every day, allowing him to constantly perceive, the progress of his state of mind would not have been so fast. It was like having a master who constantly demonstrated a certain battle skill for you, day after day, year after year, tirelessly until you finally understood it. What kind of master was so responsible? No, not a single one. Le Skull Withered was a good person. It had forcibly demonstrated for him for nearly 100 years, and it would continue to do so until the end of time. Although the music had removed some of the restrictions, it was still quite a distance away from becoming a complete song. Luin continued. He continued to comprehend and was looking forward to the future. It was just that the protection period for the three universes was getting closer and closer. He hoped that after he broke through to immortality, the Master of Balance would take action. It seemed that the mission reward was going to be consumed. The Eternal had also improved. His room for improvement was greater than Lu Yin's, but the speed of his improvement was not as fast as Lu Yin's. Continue. Delight City was still heading in one direction. Another 100 years passed. During these 100 years, Delight City did not change direction. Lu Yin's music was also becoming more and more accepted by Yugu and the rest. In Yugu's words, if he maintained this speed of improvement, it would not be long before he could challenge the castle. After saying that, he suddenly thought of the Eternal and immediately went to check on the Eternal's musical attainments. The conclusion was that it would take a long time. It really hoped that the Eternal would be kicked out. Sitting by the river, Luin looked at the castle in the distance. At this moment, when he listened to Le Skull Withered's music again, it was no longer that unpleasant. The deafening roar at the beginning had also become acceptable. Look at my big brother's improvement and then look at you. You're not improving at all. Sad. Yugu was angry and scolded the Eternal. The Eternal smiled. I'm also working hard. This smile made Yugu even angrier. I wanted to slap this guy to death. The Eternal sat beside Luin and looked at him. Congratulations. Luin said indifferently, as long as you work hard, you can do it too. The Eternal was tired. It's very difficult. Luin did not speak. When faced with this guy, the more he spoke, the more mistakes he would make. Very few creatures in the city are like us. For example, Boss Joe has never learned music, but his beating is not disgusting. It's very interesting. The Eternal said indifferently. Luin looked at him. Are there very few people like us? Then what do you mean? The Eternal shrugged. I don't know. Maybe we're special. I'm better than you, Luin said. The Eternal nodded. Indeed, I have to work hard too. With that, he turned and left. Luin looked at his back. This guy's words always made people feel that he was implying something, but they could not guess it. It was impossible for him to see who he was. Did the difference in music make him notice the difference? It did not matter. At this moment, there were still 500 years before the unknown protection period for the three universes. Luin looked at the castle in the distance. 500 years was not much, but it was not little either. Soon a few years had passed. On this day, Yugu suggested that everyone play a song and asked Luin if he had a song. Luin was helpless. He was still a distance away from composing a song. Yugu excitedly said that he already had one and asked everyone to play according to his song. Of course, the purpose was to rehearse and not to challenge them to enter the castle. This made Luin feel at ease. He had already decided to put aside other things and finish the last step of the high wall of the mind. He could not enter the castle so quickly. Pa, dong dong. Pa, dong dong. Da, ding. Whose ding? Yugu stared. The Eternal held the seal. My ding. Yugu angrily scolded, that's too unpleasant. Have you seriously thought about music? Look at my big brother. That dong is so pleasant. Luin pursed his lips. Really? The Eternal was speechless. Yugu kept scolding the Eternal and even suspected that he was doing it on purpose. Suddenly Zhu's body moved and he walked towards the castle. What are you doing? The rehearsal is not over yet. Yugu asked. Zhu acted as if he did not hear and continued walking towards the castle. Boss Zhou raised his claws and suddenly, patterns appeared on the surface of Zhu Baigu's body. They spread and finally connected, forming a door. Luin saw the door and his heart sank. Not good, it was unknown. Boss Zhou's claws fell and music boomed in the city. Boss Zhou's claws stopped and he looked up at the castle. There, Legoku was standing at the top and staring at them. Even though he was wearing sunglasses at this moment, Luin and the others were exposed to Legoku's eyes. The door was formed. Dong dong dong. Footsteps sounded. Zhu stood still and did not move. A creature that Luin was very familiar with walked out of the door. It was Tengu. Tengu slowly walked out of the door. On its back, a figure faced the castle and said slowly, Long time no see, Legoku. Luin looked at the figure with his back facing him. He did not expect him to appear here. The unknown master of balance was related to the death universe? Oh, isn't this the unknown master of balance? Why do you have time to look for me? Legoku spoke in a strange tone. His strange tone seemed relaxed, but Luin could already feel the fear and even uneasiness in his voice. This emotion was very obvious to the current him. If it was 200 years ago when he first came, he would definitely not be able to tell. I want to ask for your help. Of course, I will also help you. After speaking, Tengu walked towards the castle and entered. Everything returned to normal. Zhu Bai had awakened, but he did not know what had happened. Luin did not know that the Master of Balance had carved a door into Zhu Bai's body. Then, what was the condition for triggering the formation of the door? Distance? Or time? Zhu Bai and Eternal had been thrown into Lu City, but Legoku had not been seen. Lu City was getting further and further away from the three universes. The Master of Balance had arrived. The Master of Balance had come personally, and his intentions were self-evident. He probably wanted to use the Death Universe to deal with the three universes. He had already begun. Lu Yin's gaze was gloomy. Today is the Dragon Boat Festival. I will update at 2 p.m. Thank you. I wish everyone good health. Chapter 4465. On the other side, Yugu and Boss Zhang stared at Zhu without saying a word. Although the appearance of the Master of Balance didn't cause too much pressure, Luin could hear the fear in Leku Jin's voice, and they could hear it even more. Especially Boss Zhang. If that claw had landed, it knew that something bad would have happened. At that moment, it felt like it was facing Leku Jin's heaven and earth annihilation. It thought that this guy was just there to make up the numbers, but it didn't expect him to have such a big secret. Zhu was unremarkable in the band. His musical talent was average and he didn't speak. He was a very good member in Yugu's eyes. Unlike the Eternal, whose musical talent was terrible. But such a big thing happened when he was just there to make up the numbers. Zhu didn't expect that the unknown would carve a door on his body. Do you know? Zhu stared at the Eternal. The Eternal said, of course not. Impossible. You stopped me from seeing Le Jin. How could you not know? Zhu didn't believe it. That was a reasonable reason. It was the Eternal's way of doing things. Lu Yin believed it and Zhu couldn't refute it. Okay, let's continue rehearsing. Yu Gu interrupted and stared at Zhu with vigilance. Hey, you don't have anything else on you, do you? Tell me in advance. Zhu said in a low voice, I don't know at all. I suggest we kick him. Yu Gu looked at Lu Yin. Boss Song also said, agreed. Lu Yin didn't care at first, but the Master of Balance had arrived. The location of the universe would be exposed, and it didn't matter if Zhu and the Eternal saw Le Jin or not. But on second thought, if Zhu still had a door carved by the Master of Balance, then he could see what the Master of Balance was going to do. The Master of Balance couldn't guess that he was using a bone clone to watch Zhu. So Lu Yin refused. Don't abandon, don't give up. Yu Gu muttered, I hate these words. Lu Yin didn't know what the Master of Balance said to Le Jin, but Le Cheng continued to go in the original direction and didn't turn back. Lu Yin did not relax. Since the Balance Envoy had made a move, it would not end so easily. Another few decades passed before Leking suddenly came to a halt. Lu Yin stood up with a heavy heart. Something had happened. Le Gu's hoarse voice spread throughout the city, hey, all living creatures are to fall asleep immediately. Lu Yin felt uneasy and found Yu Gu and Boss Zhou. What happened? Luo Lao said, it should be the death shift. The Great Death Shift? Lu Yin was puzzled. He had merged with so many skeletons but he had never seen such a thing before. The Eternal also came over and was also puzzled. Luo Lao said, the Great Death Shift can transfer the power of the 7 abysses of the Death Universe within a certain range. Once the Great Death Shift is used, it means that either Le City's forces will be sent away or other abysses' forces will be sent over. Lu Yin's heart sank. Something had indeed changed. In other words, these hundreds of years of movement were actually for the sake of entering the range of the Great Death Shift. He just didn't know what the purpose of the Great Death Shift was. Was it aimed at the fishing civilization of the heavenly realm or the human race? Sleep Death Shift. Shifting isn't easy, we need to use ourselves as the carrier to draw out the deathly silent energy from the deepest part of Le City and gather it in the castle. Then Le Jin will use it to connect with the other abysses. With that, Boss Zhou lay down. The fish bones fell into the river with a splash. Zhu also lay down. Lu Yin subconsciously exchanged glances with the Eternal and lay down with a distance between them. There were only about 400 years left until the time limit of protecting the 3 universes. At the top of the castle, the death band played their music. The booming music formed a terrifying sound pressure that could be seen with the naked eye, tearing the surrounding stars apart. Le Jin raised his sunglasses and sang a song that Lu Yin had never heard before to the accompaniment of the music. This song triggered the deathly silent energy in his body and even the boundless deathly silent energy hidden under the ground. He never thought that there would be such a boundless deathly silent energy under Le City. This deathly silent energy surpassed everything he knew, including the deathly silent energy that Le Jin used during his battle with the Deity King. As the music blasted, the deathly silent energy gathered towards a direction under Le Jin's singing. It disappeared in an instant and stretched out endlessly. At this moment, Lu Yin lay down quietly. He felt that there was a monster hiding under the ground, breathing. This was the feeling of the deathly silent energy being triggered. The boundless deathly silent energy passed through his body, through the skeletons, and merged with Le Jin's singing. He was just one of the countless skeletons. Although it was said that he was not sleeping at all. The other skeletons might have fallen asleep under Le Jin's command, but he could not. Feeling the boundless deathly silent energy flowing through his body, Lu Yin kept suppressing the urge to devour this deathly silent energy. Suppress it, suppress it. No matter how much he suppressed it, he was afraid that Le Jin would sense it. But in the end he could not suppress it. The deathly silent energy continued to pour into his bones. The deathly silent planets that resembled rotating stars looked like dots to outsiders, but they were constantly rotating and frantically devouring the deathly silent energy that penetrated his body. At first, Lu Yin had restrained himself, but after devouring for a while and realizing that it had no effect on Le Jin, he became more and more unbridled. Every dot was rotating and devouring. This speed was even faster than when his main body had devoured the deathly silent energy of the Eternal Realm skeletons. He could not imagine how much deathly silent energy was hidden under Le City and where it came from. This deathly silent energy surpassed Ligujine's, and Ligujine was an existence that was at the peak of two universal laws. Lu Yin completely let himself go and devoured the deathly silent energy, but it still did not affect Ligujine. Then he noticed that the deathly silent energy not far away was also decreasing, and he felt that something was wrong. Someone else was devouring this deathly silent energy. Was that the direction of the eternal realm? After a while, Ligujine was affected, and his gaze swept outside the castle. Hey, why is the energy being consumed so quickly? You guys go too. The other three members of the death band all lay down and helped Ligujine guide the deathly silent energy underground. In the dark starry sky, the deathly silent energy continued to spread, starting from Lu City and spreading into the distance. Even with Lu Yin's mirroring technique, he could not see the end. The limit of the great death shift was far beyond his imagination. Within the space of a square inch, the deathly silent energy continued to extend in a certain direction. If the space of a square inch continued to shrink, one would discover the end of all the deathly silent energy. It would eventually converge into a single point, and that point would be the true death universe. With the death universe as the core, the seven abysses used the great death shift. This was an enormous method that could traverse an endless distance, and even an eternal realm cultivator would find it hard to imagine. Lu Yin did not dare to move beneath Lu City, but he could sense that the eternal realm was devouring the deathly silent energy. The eternal realm could not be underestimated. If Lu Yin could devour the deathly silent energy, so could the eternal realm. Furthermore, the eternal realm's methods were no less than Lu Yin's, and its devouring speed was extremely fast. Lu Yin was worried that Ligujine would notice, which would be troublesome. Fortunately, everything was normal. Even though the death band's music had stopped, Ligujine was still singing, so it should not affect the great death shift. Lu Yin actually wanted to interrupt the great death shift, but it was useless. If one attempt was not enough, he would try a second time. He could interrupt it once, but he could not interrupt it a second time. Time slowly passed as Lu Yin devoured more and more deathly silent energy. The specks of light on his bones did not grow larger, but they increased by a lot until they almost covered his entire skeleton. Suddenly Lu City trembled. Ligujine's singing stopped and he looked into the distance. The great death shift formed by the seven abysses and the death universe had been completed. Come, I'm finally going to find them. Bang, bang, bang. A loud sound rang out as if something had smashed into the ground. Almost all of the skeletal creatures were asleep, but Lu Yin could clearly see that a ball of white lava had fallen less than 100 meters away from him and was slowly flowing into the river. The white lava was Ryujo's clone. Could those loud sounds have been Ryujo's clone? There should be more than that, as the great death shift could not have only brought Ryujo's clone over. There had to be other abyssal forces as well. With a bang, countless skeletons were born. Everything was awakened. The music boomed once more and everything returned to normal. The only change was that outside Lu City's castle, there was a new group of creatures that Lu Yin had never seen before. There were skeletons and flesh creatures. Lu Yin stood up and immediately looked into space. Lu City moved and changed directions, heading in a different direction. That direction was not the three universes. Lu Yin relaxed. The target was not the three universes? Not far away, the Eternal slowly stood up and looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin retracted his gaze and subconsciously looked at the Eternal as well. They did not speak, but they both knew what the other had done. What the hell? You scared me to death. Yugu jumped out of the water. Not far from him, there was white lava flowing slowly. Boss Zhou looked over. It's Ro's clone. Oh, that Ro? One of the seven great abyss? The one who is on par with Lord Ligu and Lord Kujin? Yugu exclaimed. Boss Zhou nodded. Ryujo's clone flowed along the river and headed into the distance. Lu Yin suggested, let's take a walk. Looks like we've gained a lot of new friends. Hopefully we won't meet any strong opponents in the castle. Yugu agreed. That's a good idea. If there really is a strong opponent, we'll challenge them first. The castle is only so big, and the more bands that enter, the fewer chances the bands behind will have. But... He hesitated as he looked at the Eternal. What if this guy drags us down? Lu Yin's problem was no longer serious. The most serious one was the Eternal. The Eternal was very sincere. I'll work hard. He then smiled at Lu Yin. The Great Death Shift had brought a group of experts from the Death Universe to Lu City. They did not head towards the three universes, which made Lu Yin relieved. At the same time, he wanted to see how many experts there were. But what he did not know was that on the other side, with the three universes as the center, in one direction, a huge black plaza appeared. Countless skeletons stood on the plaza, stretching endlessly. The plaza was held in the skeleton's palms like a toy. It was an incomparably huge skeleton that stood tall in the square. It walked step by step in the direction of the three universes, crossing an endless distance with each step. Chapter 4466. Flowing Night God from the Divine World requested an audience with the godly king. How dare you help him use our civilization? Specks of light danced around the godly king. Flowing Night God said respectfully, "Please understand, godly king. I'm doing this for the sake of the Divine World civilization. I don't have any selfish motives. Our Divine World civilization doesn't need to wag our tail and beg for mercy." The godly king's tone was cold. Flowing Night God said, "This is the last time he will borrow the power of our civilization." The godly king sneered, "Just use it. Why borrow it? Without conditions it's called using. With conditions it's called borrowing." "What conditions?" Flowing Night God said slowly. After a while, the godly king said in a low voice, "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Please believe me, godly king. I've always been thinking for the sake of the Divine World civilization," Flowing Night God said respectfully. The godly king was silent for a moment. "All right, I'll make a trip personally and make that civilization disappear. You'll come with me?" "Yes." In the deep starry sky, a low voice echoed, "How did you find me? It's not difficult for me to find someone. Why don't you do it yourself?" "I don't know why I have to do it myself. If there's something to use, I naturally have to use it. What if I don't do it? Don't you want revenge? Or do you really not care about the path I gave you? You have no other choice." In Lu City, Lu Yin and the others saw many experts being teleported over by the death teleportation. There were many of them, but it was different from what they had expected. This was because they saw many creatures that had not reached the eternal realm. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be many experts teleported over using the death teleportation, but they should all be top-notch experts. "That guy can't even compare to me, but he can be teleported over." Yugu looked at Baigu, who was half buried in the ground, and shouted. Boss Joe said, "The death teleportation is Lu City's request for help from the death universe and the other abyss. With the death universe's consent, they can teleport experts, but the other abyss might not agree. However, due to the rules of the death universe, they can only send some creatures over." Luin understood. No wonder they sent these over. However, there must be experts among them. We just haven't seen them yet. Boss Joe continued, "To be able to make the death universe agree to the death teleportation, there must be an expert. Or else, just teleportation." Eternal was curious. The consumption of the death shift? Luo Lao said, "The range of the great shift of death is far beyond the imagination of normal eternal life realm experts. The amount of deathly silence energy required to perform such a large-scale shift is also unimaginable. Every time the great shift of death is used, it means that something big is about to happen. Even if the other abyssal realms do not want to cooperate, they still have to pay a price." "Another soft universe clone," Lu Yin said as he looked into the distance. One had appeared at the place where they had been sleeping, and now there was another one right in front of them. Although Ryujo's doppelganger was not a very powerful eternal life, it was still quite good. It was unknown how many of them had come through the death teleportation this time. As they walked, they circled around Joy City and saw many creatures that had been transferred over. Some of the creatures were easy to identify because they weren't white bones. Eternity had finally found an existence similar to him. Although he was not human, he was also a creature of flesh and blood, so he was not out of the ordinary. Delight City was huge, enough to bury countless stars. It would take at least a few hundred years to see everything. Therefore they sped up. Fishbone suggested that they take a detour along the river, which extended in all directions. He didn't have to look at all the supporting creatures. Luin agreed. Although he was curious about how many experts had come to support Delight City, he also needed to build a high mental wall. He had no time to waste. After circling around the river for a few days, Lu Yin and the others saw a small black boat approaching them at a very slow speed. They continued to approach each other. On the black boat was a creature made of pure black gas. Lu Yin knew that this creature was a creature from the death universe. These white bones were creatures that had been bestowed with the bone's tongue, and the death universe itself had creatures that were made of this black gas. Lu Yin knew this from the many white bones he had merged with. The black boat brushed past them. Boss Joe looked back. "The ferryman of the river of time." Fishbone was shocked. "That's the ferryman of the river of time?" Rumor has it that one of the 7 great abyss is the ferryman of the river of time. He has the ability to enter the river of time and has many ferrymen under him. This should be one of them, Boss Joe said. Luin looked at the black boat in the distance. Did the Death Universe also have experts that could enter the river of time? This wasn't too surprising. The Death Universe's strength might not necessarily be below that of the unknown. If the unknown could have it, then so could the Death Universe. The ferryman of the river of time's strength couldn't be seen clearly, but it shouldn't have reached the eternal level. However, this kind of creature sometimes depended on its use of the river of time. They continued to circle around the river. In half a year they saw 2 eternal beings, both of which were external reinforcements. Including Ryujo, there were at least 4 eternal realm reinforcements, which was quite a number. And this was only the ones they saw around the river. There must be more. A rough estimate was that the Death Shift could support 6 eternal realm reinforcements even if each abyss supported 1. They didn't know how many Ryujo's doppelgangers had come. On this day, Luin suddenly stood up and looked in the direction of the shore. What was going on? There was a familiar aura. What's wrong? Fishbone asked. The eternal expert looked at Luin. Luin looked into the distance. What was this familiar aura? It was very familiar, but he couldn't recall it. Strange. After some thought he went ashore. I'll go over there and take a look. Let's go together, Boss Joe said. Luin didn't refuse and the group headed into the distance. The further they went, the stronger the familiar aura became. Suddenly Luin stopped and remembered. This familiar aura belonged to the 7 treasures heavenly toad Old 6. Among the 100 black armor plates of the Mahakala seal, one of them had the aura of the 7 treasures heavenly toad Old 6. It was left to him by ancestor Shan, who hoped that he would be able to find Old 6 when he encountered this aura. The 7 treasures heavenly toads could sense each other. Although his current body was a white-bone doppelganger, his aura could still be sensed. This aura was familiar to his bones. There was no mistake, it was Old 6. But why was Old 6 here? This meant that Lu Yin's heart was heavy as he continued to walk forward. After a while, he saw a 7 treasures heavenly toad squatting on the ground in the distance. It wasn't big, but it released a powerful eternal realm aura. That was the 7 treasures heavenly toad Old 6. Old 6 was different from Boss and the others. Its entire body was dark gold, and there was a circle of black beads around its neck. It also had a white cloak on its back. The strangest thing was that it was wearing shoes. It was neither fish nor fowl, and its eyes were as bright as mirrors. When it saw Luin and the others appear, it stared straight at them. Boss Joe stepped forward and stared at Old 6 warily. Luin sized up Old 6. Wasn't this white bone that hadn't been bestowed with the bone speed language? However, there was a strong aura of death on its body, so it must have been transported here by the Great Death Shift. This meant that it was in another abyss. Luin felt a little sad. Even before Ancestor Shan died, he had wanted to see Old 6, but he hadn't expected that Old 6 would be controlled by the Death Universe. Even if it hadn't died, it had lost its freedom. Who would have thought that they would meet the genius that Ancestor Shan had described as an outstanding talent here? What are you doing? Old 6 barked, its bright eyes glaring at Luin and the others, especially Luin since he had been the first to arrive. Luin raised a hand and pointed forward. The Eternal stared at Luin. Did he know this toad? I want to talk to it, Luin said. He looked in the direction that the Eternal was pointing and saw a bear. Perhaps Old 6's aura was too strong, but everyone's attention was focused on it and no one noticed that there was another bear not far away. The Eternal looked over as well. A bear? Wasn't he looking for the toad? Luin had sensed Old 6's aura coming over and had forgotten about the Eternal. This Eternal had interacted with the Star Toad for a long time, and if it saw that Luin had some interaction with Old 6, it might think of something. Thus, Luin immediately turned his attention to the bear behind them. But then again, where did this bear come from? And it was reading a book. That's right, it was a bear and it was reading a book. This bear was very special. Although it had the appearance of a bear, its head was half mechanical and half skeletal, giving it a terrifying appearance. When Old 6 heard that Luin wanted to talk to the bear, he looked back. Your friend? The bear looked up at Luin, shook its head, and lowered its head to continue reading. It doesn't know you, Old 6 said. Luin barked. Heroic bear, is that you? Old 6 looked at the bear strangely. Heroic bear? The bear looked up again, its mechanical eyes looking at Luin strangely. Heroic bear? Luin shouted. Is that you? Do you still remember the stone tablet from the star rotation? The Great Utility River and the 18-star alignment. Do you still remember? And this is Boss Joe from our star rotation. Do you still remember him? Boss Zhou stared at the bear. The Great Utility River and the 18-star alignment were all wonders of the star rotation. He knew that Lu Yin came from the star rotation. If that bear knew, then it also came from the star rotation. And the creatures from the star rotation all knew it. Xuanhuan looked at Lu Yin and then at Boss Zhou. Then, it shook its head and lowered its head to continue reading. Heroic bear, is that you? You don't recognize me? Yes, I was the one who caused you to leave the star rotation together, causing you to become like this. But look at me, I've received my retribution. Don't you forgive me? Lu Yin shouted. The bear was unmoved. Old Six said, you're mistaken. Let's go. Lu Yin was unwilling and shouted a few more times. Seeing that the bear still did not respond, he could only leave helplessly. Jianghu comforted him. Brother, maybe it really isn't your friend. Lu Yin looked back and sighed. Maybe. Boss Zhou patted Lu Yin. It's impossible for a star rotation creature not to recognize me. It shouldn't be Heroic Bear. But don't be discouraged. As long as Heroic Bear is alive, you will definitely meet him. Heroic Bear? Of course it was fake. Lu Yin's goal was to confuse the Eternal and prevent it from seeing through his identity. This was more or less enough. Wait. Old Six shouted. Chapter 4467. Hearing Old Six shout, Lu Yin and the rest looked back. Old Six pointed at the bear. The bear closed the book and easily cut open the ground with its arm. It lifted the ground and created something that resembled a table and two stools. It sat down and waved at Lu Yin, indicating for him to sit across from it. Lu Yin was confused. What did it mean? He was just acting. The bear stared at Lu Yin and gestured for him to sit. Lu Yin had no choice but to pretend to be excited. Hero Bear, you recognized me? The bear shook its head and gestured for him to sit. Lu Yin was confused and looked at Ol Six. What does it mean? Ol Six rolled its eyes. It means it's not the Hero Bear you know, but it likes the name. Jianghu was surprised. How did you know? The bear gestured for Lu Yin to sit for the fourth time. Boss Zhou said, let's go and see. If it's the Hero Bear, it might have its own difficulties. Lu Yin was speechless. To hell with difficulties, there was no such creature as the Hero Bear. But at this point he could only go and see. Step by step he walked past Old Six and sat down opposite the bear. The bear placed the book neatly on the table and looked at Lu Yin curiously. Even though it only had one mechanical eye, Lu Yin could see that it was curious. It gestured for Lu Yin to continue. Lu Yin couldn't understand. Old Six said, it wants you to continue. About what? About the Hero Bear. Lu Yin was speechless. Since it's not the Hero Bear, what's the point of telling it? The bear smiled, half mechanical and half skeletal. It looked ferocious and gestured for Lu Yin to continue. Lu Yin looked at Ol Six. Ol Six said, it thinks it might have lost its memory. Your words might help it remember. How did you know that? Jianghu was confused. How could it be translated? It was just a gesture. Lu Yin must have imagined it. Boss Zhou said, tell it, maybe it's the Hero Bear. Lu Yin looked at the bear and then at Boss Zhou. I forgot that the Hero Bear is weaker than me. This bear seems to have eternal life. Boss Zhou suddenly remembered. Yes, it's eternal life. It can't be the Hero Bear. I'm the only eternal life in this world. Lu Yin stood up. Sorry, I was mistaken. Goodbye. Six raised his pitchfork and glared at Lu Yin. Boss Zhou grabbed at it, his sharp claws firmly pressing on the steel fork, but the steel fork did not move at all. Terrifying power overlapped on the steel fork, shaking the void and causing the earth to crack. The lotus leaf on Six Brothers' head rose. Not bad, Legukajin really has an expert. As it spoke, the corners of its mouth curled up. It didn't seem to do anything, but Boss Zhou retreated 7 steps in a row. He looked at Old Six in shock. Lu Yin was astonished. In that instant, Sixth Brother had definitely done something, but his white bone clone could not tell what it was. Sixth Brother's strength was definitely comparable to an existence that was compatible with 2 universal laws. Jianghu, Zhu, and Eternal immediately retreated. Even Boss Rin couldn't take half a step forward. This toad was quite powerful. You sit down. Old Six stared at Lu Yin. Lu Yin had no choice but to sit down. I was mistaken. Bear smiled again and gestured for him to continue. He didn't need Old Six to translate for him. He understood that Old Six wanted him to talk about Ying Xiong's past. What the hell, what was the meaning of this bear? Why are you listening to this? If Old Six was so obedient, then it must be even stronger. Lu Yin looked at Old Six and then at Bear. He had no choice but to make up a story about his past with xianxia. As Lu Yin narrated his story, the bear raised a finger and drew a picture in the air, depicting a man and a bear. As Lu Yin's story progressed, the man and the bear seemed to reenact the scene, and they experienced each other continuously. It was both interesting and strange. Bear held its head with one hand and replayed the scene with the other, as if it was directing a story. In the distance, Eternal calmly watched, suppressing his original doubts. The story lasted for several hours before stopping. Bear lowered its arm and looked at Lu Yin with interest. After a while it waved. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief and left. What had just happened was inexplicably strange. After Lu Yin and the others left, Bear replayed the scene once more, but this time, it sped up the scenes and gradually formed two sets of actions for the person and the bear. They continuously merged into a clenched fist and punched out, causing the void to tremble. Old Six praised, "You created another battle technique. Amazing." Bear shook its head. Old Six was puzzled. Is it not enough? Bear looked in the direction Lu Yin had left. Old Six understood. Then let's continue. We can't lose our inspiration. Bear grinned. Humans were really interesting. In Delight City, each day was calculated according to the music of Lu Gu's Withered. Lu Yin discovered that the interval between Lu Gu's Withered and song was exactly 1 day. The next day, Lu Yin's group went down the river without stopping, wanting to stay as far away from that bear as possible. Facing that bear gave them an uneasy feeling that made them shiver. Bear? Yugu exclaimed. Lu Yin and the others looked over and saw a bear sitting at a stone table in front of them. Old Six was standing not far away, calmly watching them. When Lu Yin looked over, Bear gestured for him to sit. Lu Yin's heart sank. Not good, he was being watched. He wanted to leave, but the bone clone could not teleport unless the main body was present. Helplessly, Lu Yin sat across from Bear. At this moment, Boss Pang felt powerless. Yugu, Eternal, and Tyrant did not dare to say anything. Bear gestured for Lu Yin to sit. What do you mean? Lu Yin asked. Old Six grinned. Continue yesterday's topic. I'm done, Lu Yin said. Old Six raised an eyebrow. Continue. Lu Yin pretended to be angry. I'm done. Do you want to know all the details of my life with xianxia? Bear held its chin in a strange posture and drew a circle with its right palm. Lu Yin looked at Old Six. Old Six said, say whatever you want. You have a lot of stories and it wants to hear them. Lu Yin stared blankly at Old Six. What stories do I have? How would I know? Old Six rolled its eyes. Bear smiled and drew another circle with its right palm. Lu Yin stared at it. What do you want to hear? I did admit my mistake yesterday. Can I apologize? Also speak. How can someone with such strength not know how to speak? Bear drew another circle. Lu Yin really wanted to eat a bear's paw. Old Six said, don't waste time. You have a lot of stories and they must be very interesting. It's good for everyone to hear them. Lu Yin was speechless. He was speechless. Also, this bear had only drawn a circle. How could Old Six translate so many words? I don't have time to waste with you. This is Joy City and it's not your place to tell us what to do. We want to compose a song and challenge the castle. We want to challenge Death Band. These are the rules set by Master Legu Jin. Lu Yin's tone was low. Bear lowered its paw and slowly tapped on the table. Lu Yin was too familiar with this action. It was how he schemed against others. This bear was thinking of how to scheme against him. Old Six did not translate and just waited quietly. In the distance, Boss Zhou and the rest were waiting as well. The river flowed and splashed against the shore. Lu Yin realized that the bear's eyes were staring at him. To be precise, it was staring at his bones. He felt uneasy. The stars of serious art were revolving around his bones. It was the power of Devour. Could it have seen through him? Just as he thought of this, the bear straightened up and pointed at Lu Yin. Lu Yin looked at Old Six. Old Six shook its lotus leaf but did not translate. The next moment, the void around the bear started to distort. 1, 2, 3, 100 spatial distortions formed a vortex that revolved around the bear's body. The others could not see anything, but Lu Yin was shocked. Was this the serious art? That's right, this was the position of the stars of serious art. This bear had actually learned it just by looking at his body? How was this possible? Even the unknown envoy's sudden arrival in Joy City had not shocked Lu Yin this much. At this moment he felt a sense of absurdity. This bear had just looked at him and learned the serious art in an extremely short amount of time. Using the serious art was as simple as breathing or drinking water. Even with Lu Yin's original body strength, it would not have been easy for him to learn the serious art without ever learning it. He should have at least cultivated it. But this bear had not cultivated it at all. It had just looked at it and learned it. Damn it. It had always been others who were shocked by Lu Yin's cultivation talent, but now he was shocked by a bear. The bear smiled at him. Look, it's so simple, Old Six translated. Lu Yin stared at the bear. You knew it before. The bear shook its head and waved its right hand. No, Old Six said. Lu Yin's voice was dry. Who are you? The bear's smile became even brighter. Humans were really interesting. It had seen many interesting humans in the past, but they had all been used up. It drew a circle with its right hand. You have many stories that I want to hear, Old Six translated. The same words gave Lu Yin a completely different feeling. He could not hear anything from Old Six, but Lu Yin knew that this bear was threatening him. Since it could see through the serious art, it must also be able to see the power of death that was being devoured by the stars. With the power of his white bone clone, it should not have so much power of death. This was a threat. Lu Yin had not expected to encounter such a thing when he was looking for Old Six of the Seven Treasures Sky Toad. This bear was definitely not simple. More importantly, what story did he have? How could he tell it his original body's story? The bear lowered its hand and looked at Lu Yin with a smile. Lu Yin took a deep breath. I have a story. If you're willing to listen, then I'm willing to tell it. The bear's grin widened. Thank you, Old Six translated and then rolled its eyes. Lu Yin began to make up a story. Since this bear wanted to hear it, he would make it up and see how much it would listen. After telling a story for 2 hours, Lu Yin left while the bear pondered on the spot. This time Lu Yin and the others did not take the water route. Instead, they circled to the other side of the castle as quickly as possible and hid there, afraid that they would be found by the bear and Old Six again. But for some reason, no matter where they hid, they would be found. The next day Lu Yin was found and he continued telling stories. He deliberately told a completely different story from yesterday, and the bear was happy to listen. On the third day he continued telling stories. On the fourth day. On the fifth day. End of chapter. Chapter 4468. Days passed and Lu Yin continued to tell stories to the bear. Although it was only for 2 hours, he still needed time. Outside the 2 hours he would listen to Lu Gu's Withered Bones music to build a mental wall. Just like that, 100 years passed. Lu Yin could not understand why this bear liked to listen to stories so much, and for 100 years at that. It did not seem disgusted and even asked him to tell stories every day. Fishbone and the rest were numb. Six was also numb and he could not help but ask, his stories are getting sloppy. Do you still want to listen to them? The bear flipped through its book and nodded. Is there something different about him? You care too much about him, oh, Six asked again. He was puzzled and he even looked into the distance. The bear raised its head and looked in that direction as well. Lu Yin and the rest were there and they were not far away. Lu Yin and the rest had stopped hiding as there was no point in hiding and it was a waste of time. He would take the initiative to tell stories every day, and the sooner he finished, the sooner he could leave. After a while, the bear lowered its head again and did not answer. Well, Six looked at Lu Yin. Humans were very special in the core space, but there were many humans in the Death Universe, and some had even come from the Nine Bases era. The old man admired the humans of that era, but he also feared them. Still, he had to admit that the humans of that era were very strong. But even the humans of that era had not been valued so highly by the bear. What was so different about this human? Another few decades passed and Lu Yin was still making up stories for the bear. Even though the stories he made up were terrible and completely unfocused, the bear listened with great interest. It kept fiddling with the void and describing the stories that Lu Yin was telling it. Lu Yin could not take it anymore. Haven't you heard enough? The bear grinned and shook its head. Lu Yin did not need Six to translate, as he could roughly understand what the bear meant. A story a day. It's been 100 years and there are more than 40,000 stories. If you haven't heard enough, I've already told enough. If you really want to listen to stories, can you find someone else to tell it to? The bear raised a hand and drew a circle. Lu Yin sighed, I still have to compose, so I really don't have time to continue. The bear propped up its chin and sized up Lu Yin, especially when it saw that the specks of light on his bones had increased a little. Lu Yin understood. All right, I'll continue. Xiong raised his hand, pointed at the castle and raised a finger. Lu Yin didn't understand and he looked at Six. Sixth brother said, your state of mind is constantly getting closer to the music of this world. This is a good thing for you. As long as you keep this up, you'll be able to transform after some time. Especially listening to Lu Skeleton Withered singing, it will be even more beneficial for you. If you need, I can ask Legudu to sing one more song every day. I believe it won't refuse. Not far away, Yugu was stunned. This can be translated? You made it up yourself. Luin didn't care about these details. Instead, he stared at the bear. Can you make Legu Wither sing more than once a day? Bear smiled and pointed at the castle. Old Six translated, Leguku is very good. He usually won't reject others as long as you have a need. Moreover, he also likes to sing. If you're willing to listen, he's willing to sing. It's just like you telling stories. If you're willing to tell, he's willing to listen. Luin glanced at Ol Six, and he was certain that Ol Six had exaggerated his own story. Otherwise, Ol Six would have just pointed at the castle. Alright, sorry for the trouble, Luin said. At the same time, he felt that this bear was not simple. However, he only told stories for 2 hours every day. Compared to having Legudu sing a little more, which would speed up the transformation of his state of mind, these 2 hours were clearly worth it. There were still more than 100 years until the protection period of the 3 universes ended. His initial plan of starting a forced war for the unknown could no longer be realized. The Keeper of Balance had already made his move, and the only thing he could do was try his best to break through to immortality as soon as possible. Legudu really did sing more every day, and it wasn't just one song. Sometimes he would sing 2, sometimes 3, depending on his mood. Luin also felt that he was becoming more and more attuned to this world. In the blink of an eye, another 100 years passed. On this day he composed his own song and he was very excited. He had finally reached this step. The inspiration for this song came from the stories that he had told the bear. From the initial resistance to the later adaptation, he had even perfected each story. The stories were fabricated, but the emotions were real. Every choice and decision made by the creatures in the stories came from the creatures' own emotions. This became the skeleton of the song. When the song was completed, Luin saw a wall of his state of mind that covered the sky and blocked his path forward. He had finally completed the transformation with this wall. The next step was to tear down this wall. When he did that, he could attempt to step into immortality. Breaking through to immortality was complicated, but it was also simple. At least, it was not what he had imagined. At first, he had thought that breaking through to immortality not only required one's state of mind, but also one's understanding of battle techniques, cultivation methods, sequence laws, and ancestral worlds. However, he had later learned that immortality was a qualitative change in life itself. Battle techniques and other things were all cultivated by life. When breaking through to immortality, one would be able to transform if they were enlightened, but if they were not, it would not affect them. For example, Master Bitter Lamp had barely surpassed the 9 Abyss realm before breaking through to immortality, but after breaking through, he had transformed into the 18 Abyss realm. His battle techniques had not been enlightened before the breakthrough, and they had only been strengthened as his life essence changed. The Elder God was the same. His battle techniques and cultivation methods had not transformed either. The reason why they were strengthened was because the carrier had become stronger. The biggest difference between immortality and non-immortality was the comprehension of the universe, which allowed one to grasp the laws of the universe. Whether it was rebooting the universe to step into immortality or breaking through, one had to comprehend the laws of the universe. This law was related to all the cultivation in the first half of one's life. It was equivalent to an overall transformation. What Luin needed to do now was to tear down the wall of his state of mind and find the laws in his comprehension. Thump, 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 thump. The rhythm of the music blended together, and Luin used his own composition to make Guyu and the others feel comfortable. However, he still could not challenge the castle because Eternity had not caught up. Yugu was quite annoyed with Eternity. This guy's progress was too slow. Eternity was also helpless. He felt that his progress was already very fast. At least the rhythm of his tapping was not as annoying as before. Give me some more time, Eternity said. Yugu flicked his tail, full of disdain. Liqing suddenly stopped. Luin looked up at the sky. Why had it stopped? Hey, all six shouted. Luin looked over. The bear waved at him. It was not time to tell the story yet, so Luin went over with doubts. The bear smiled at him and opened his hand. A black disc appeared in his palm and extended towards Luin. What do you mean? Luin asked. Six said, You're lucky. This is an invitation letter, a place where countless creatures fight to the death but can't go. What place? The Abyss of 1,000 Tricks. Six's tone was solemn. Luin was surprised. The Abyss of 1,000 Tricks? He knew, after all, he had merged with so many skeletal creatures. Some of them had lived for a long time and had heard the words, Thousand Tricks. The Thousand Tricks was one of the 7 great abysses of the Death Universe. Legend had it that there were invincible battle techniques in the abyss. There was a general outline of a technique in the Death Universe called the Death Threshold Code. It was something that all creatures in the Death Universe wanted to learn, including the abyss like Legu. It was said that the Death Threshold Code came from the abyss of the Thousand Tricks. Any creature that entered that abyss would transform when they came out. The skeletal creatures that he had merged with wanted to go as long as they knew about the Thousand Tricks. He did not expect to receive an invitation letter. Lu Yin took it. This is the invitation letter? Oh, 6 replied. The invitation letter only says that you have the qualifications to enter the abyss, but that doesn't mean that you can actually enter. You have to find the abyss yourself, and you'll only be picked up once you're within a certain range. That depends on your luck. Lu Yin put the letter away. Thank you. The bear stood up and waved. Just as he was about to leave, he thought for a moment and then moved his hand. Lu Yin looked at OL6. 6 lazily said, I told you to take care and not die. This battle isn't that simple and it might lead to a large-scale war. What war? Lu Yin asked. At this moment, Joy City became transparent. This was a prelude to war. Lu Yin and the rest looked forward, where the void distorted and a large mountain appeared. It was faintly discernible, almost like an illusion. A familiar figure appeared in front of the mountain. It was Yu Che. Was this Dongshu Mountain? Yo, you'll die if you don't tell me. Legu's voice spread throughout the universe, and then music was released, suppressing all of the skeletal creatures' killing intent. Up ahead, Yu Che was shocked. How did you find my Dongshu Mountain? Yo, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to tell me or not? War isn't good for either of us. Is the Death Universe about to go to war with the unknowable? Boom. The music exploded as boundless killing intent was released. Legu took a step forward, destroying the world. Yu Che's gaze turned cold. All things in the world, xianhuan reversal. An unimaginably intense battle erupted, and a single flash of light was enough to bury everything. Joy City swayed. Lu Yin hadn't expected Legu to use the death shift to target Dongshu Mountain. Had the balance envoy revealed its location? If Yu Che died in this battle, then he would have nothing to worry about controlling Xiang City. If he could incite an all-out war between the unknowable and death universes, then the 3 universes would be safe. Regardless of whether the unknowable or death universes suffered losses, it would be beneficial to the human civilization. This battle won't be simple. The enemy is very strong, so protect yourselves. Boss Zhou charged out. Fishbone jumped into the water with a splash. Eternity and Bane exchanged glances, neither of them having any intention of joining the battle. Lu Yin looked at Bear and OL6, who were already heading towards Dongshu Mountain. A group of creatures also walked out of Dongshu Mountain. Yu Che wasn't alone. He had a civilization with him, although they didn't seem very strong. However, Yu Che himself was very strong. Otherwise, Legu wouldn't have used the death shift to reinforce him. Lu Yin walked into outer space wanting to see the true face of Dongshu Mountain. End of chapter. Chapter 4469. While the city and Dongshu Mountain were fighting, the 3 universes were facing a terrifying crisis. With the 3 universes extending in one direction, a huge black square appeared outside of the 9 Clouds universe. It came so suddenly that no one was prepared for it. When the black square appeared, the mother tree of the 9th heaven universe bent and collapsed. Shueta Shangyu, Jingmen Shangyu, and the other cultivators of the eternal life layer were astonished. They looked at the gigantic black square, the boundless white bones, and the finger bone which was moving towards the continent of the 9 Clouds. They couldn't believe it. How had it suddenly appeared? On the black square, a blood-stained figure hung upside down. It was Lu Feiyang. He was drawing a star chart in that direction, and when he saw the black square he was also seen. Teleportation wasn't omnipotent. The Lu family had taught them before, but they couldn't teach them how to survive in such a situation. Even Lu Yuan himself couldn't survive in the face of such terror. Lu Feiyang was dead. Life and death calamity. This was the master of one of the 7 abyss of the death universe, on par with Legu and Kujin. It was also the huge white bone that Yu Ye's consciousness had encountered. It wanted to escape but couldn't. It seemed to be holding up the universe. It was the huge white bone that Lu Yin had seen through Yu Ye's consciousness and the power of death left behind after the reboot. It was Qinglian Shangyu who used himself as bait to lure away what he thought was the death universe. It was called life and death calamity. At this moment, The huge finger bone penetrated the starry sky of the ninth heaven universe and descended, piercing the entire universe like a bubble. Shueta Xianghu's eyes widened and he rushed up. Jingmen Xianghu stepped over the door, holding Jingyun and thrusting out with his spear. Shueta and Jingyun collided with the finger bone at the same time. The finger bone was restrained for a moment, slightly bent, and the power of death entangled it. There was a loud bang and the two retreated at the same time. Above the black square, countless white bones stepped into the void and attacked the ninth heaven universe. This scene was seen by the Tianyuan universe and Luyuan outside Xiang City. They saw the crisis of the three universes with their mirroring technique and immediately returned. Lu Hui brought Qinjian Yongxing, who was closest to her, to the ninth heaven universe and returned to continue bringing Mr. Mu and the others. Baiyu rushed out and slashed at the finger bone. Qinjian Yongxing clenched his fist, starry fist. The huge human skeleton bent over, looking at Baiyu and Qinjian Yongxing, murmuring something. Alarmed Gate Xiangyu was aghast. Not good. Be careful, it's Guyu. It was already too late. The bones of Baiyu and Qinjian tore apart their flesh and blood and walked out. In an instant, the two Eternal Realm experts were dead. Many people in the continent of the Nine Clouds were shocked. They hadn't thought that a cultivator of the Eternal Life Realm would be so weak. At the same time, a beam of light appeared outside the Tianyuan cosmos. In the blink of an eye, it was the God King and flowing night god from the deity world civilization. Godly King looked in the direction of the continent of the Nine Clouds. They weren't the only ones. This civilization was the same as the one they had fought before. Since the God King sensed the life and death calamity of Palm, the life and death calamity of Palm naturally sensed the God King. Both of them were peak existences that were compatible with the laws of the universe. It was rare for them to deal with a civilization at the same time. All of this came from the balancer. The sky of the Tianyuan cosmos was also pierced through. Mr. Mu and Chu Song Yun both unleashed their treasures at the same time, forcefully blocking the Divine King's attack. The Divine King was astonished. It was actually able to withstand his attack? No wonder he broke through to the Eternal Life Realm on his own. But it was not enough. The heavens were overturned and countless stars were shattered. The universe was breaking apart, shaking, and on the verge of being reborn. All of this happened in an instant. The originally powerful human civilization was on the verge of collapse. Barong was stunned. Why did this happen all of a sudden? Countless people wailed in despair. They didn't expect the war to come so suddenly. In the Tianyuan cosmos, the god of forgetfulness and Wang Xiaoyu looked up in a daze. The human civilization had been climbing up step by step, but at this moment, it was so fragile. A gentle voice came from the heavenly hound's back. Luin is not bad at all. It's a pity that he was born at the wrong time. The glory of Jiu Lei made all the civilizations fearful. It exposed every move of the human civilization to all living beings. It's impossible for him to develop and recreate this glory. It's time to end it. Eternal life is really tiring. It was originally a simple matter, but it took a long time to understand it. Now that it's clear, it's time to end it. Just treat it as a dream. It's time to wake up. In the Dongshu Mountain, Luin followed a group of skeleton creatures to kill. Suddenly he was in a daze. His original body was awakened. In the secluded area above the heavenly sect, Luin suddenly opened his eyes and saw the panicked Long Shi and Xiang Xiu. His heart sank and he immediately teleported to the side of the skeleton clone. Taking advantage of the 1 second before his consciousness dissipated, he brought the skeleton clone back and merged with it. Then he looked outside the heavenly sect. He saw the God King suppressing Mr. Mu and Chu Song Yun with the turbid treasure. He saw the two eternal realms tearing their flesh apart under the giant finger bone of life and death calamity. Damn it. How did this happen? He knew that the balance envoy was plotting, but he didn't expect it to be so fast. He didn't know that the protection period for the three universes had just ended. He thought that even if the three universes were to attack, it would be Lucity. He was too careless. The Death universe had 7 abysses, and Lucity was just one of them. The Great Death Shift provided experts for Lucity, but it could also provide experts for the Abyss. So this was the case. Luin teleported to Ninefold Universe. Compared to the God King, life and death calamity had to be restrained. Otherwise, even eternal realms couldn't withstand the bone language, let alone others. Especially since the bone language wouldn't increase its karmic binding. Life and death calamity murmured again. This time the target was Blood Tower's Xiangyu and the others. Luin suddenly appeared and unleashed his serious technique. He raised a hand and the Golian appeared. When things reached an extreme, they would move in the opposite direction. He used his surging vitality to obtain boundless deathly stillness energy. Combined with the deathly stillness energy that he had devoured in Lucidi, it erupted and spread across the entire ninefold universe to resist the bone language. Life and Death Calamity looked at Luin in shock. Deathly stillness energy? Furthermore, it was quite large. Luin leaped up and struck out with his palm. Countless bones, including those of the eternal life realm, were pulverized. Lu Yin's power of will was also very strong when he cultivated it in Xiang City. His unity of will enveloped the three universes. One palm struck out at Life and Death Calamity, while the other struck at the God King. Green grass, immediately find my whereabouts. Tell them that I'm willing to trade, Luin barked. In the spiritualized universe, Master Greengrass's face paled. He took out a portal and was about to leave. In the celestial universe, a voice rang out from Chengo's back. Are you back? I don't know where you went, but that's not important. Everything will end soon and no one can stop it. It's time to meet. As he spoke, he raised a jade-colored palm and specks of starlight fell down. It was very beautiful. In the spiritualized universe, Master Greengrass passed through the portal, but his body remained in the spiritualized universe. He looked at the portal in shock. It had failed. In the Nine Firmaments universe, Luin also saw it and his heart sank. The white unknown was helping the Master of Balance. He immediately threw the hanging coffin to Master Greengrass and had him lie down in it. His consciousness entered the portal. However, it also failed and his consciousness could not enter the portal. The hanging coffin was connected to the portal. If the portal failed, the coffin would also be useless. The failure of the portal and the hanging coffin meant that there was no way to contact the portal. Lu Yin's transaction had ended before it had even begun. In fact, even if the hanging coffin was useful, it would not be enough. The unknown's movement relied on the portal. Without the portal, even the 8 colors could not easily rush over, even if they wanted to protect the 3 universes. All of this was within the Master of Balance's expectations. He had been watching the development of human civilization for many years, and he was more familiar with it than Luin himself. No one could compare to him in terms of planning and skill. Every step he took would be predicted by him. Above his head, the giant finger bone crashed down and pressed down on Luin. Lu Yin's palm strike could not repel the samsara palm, and it only restrained him for a moment. Even the God King was the same, and he was only restrained for a moment. Luin did not care about Master Greengrass and looked up at the giant finger bone. He clenched his fist and the stars revolved. Starry fist. He punched out and his body withered as he released all his strength to resist the finger bone. At the same time, the power of deathly stillness pushed him forward like a tide. With a bang, the starry fist hit the finger bone head-on and bent it. With civilization as the stars, Lu Yin's starry fist was displayed in front of a powerful enemy for the first time. This attack was comparable to the tricolored divine power transformation. Even the samsara palm was shocked, and he said in a low and loud voice, "Sixth barrier, invincible fist technique." Luin opened his third eye and stared at the samsara in the palm. It was an incomparably large skeleton in the shape of a human. He didn't know who the original owner of this skeleton was, but he knew that it was the greatest enemy of the human race. The samsara palm stared at Luin and met his third eye. Countless irregular black lines spread out and enveloped him in an instant. The crow froze. The samsara palm was shocked. The 10-eyed crow's innate gift? How much power did this human have? Luin took the opportunity to step forward and teleport. He appeared behind the samsara palm's head and punched out. Starry fist. The samsara palm could not move, but the black plaza in his palm released a black light that enveloped his body. Lu Yin's punch could not break through it and only created ripples. This was a punch comparable to the tricolored divine power transformation. There was a difference in power, but it was not that big. It was infinitely close, but it could not break through the black plaza? The tricolored divine power transformation had helped him defeat Mudblade, Bright Rain, Changdo, and the other experts who were compatible with the laws of 2 universes. This was the strongest power he could unleash at the moment. This power could not hurt the samsara palm, and Luin felt powerless. There was another such expert in the Tianyuan universe. Was human civilization really in a desperate situation? Above the Black Plaza, a giant skeleton slammed into the samsara palm, knocking him out of the range of the crow freeze. The samsara palm raised his hand and slapped at Luin. Human, no matter how many tricks you have, you cannot make up for the difference in absolute power. Today, human civilization will be destroyed. Lu Yin looked up and watched the giant skeleton palm descend. The Karma Heavenly Tao suddenly contracted. If you want to destroy human civilization, let's see if you can pay the price. Karma Tao Sword. Chapter 4470. The Path Sword slashed at Life and Death Calamity Palm. Life and Death Calamity Palm's hand stopped. On the square, the black light expanded again and spread to the entire arm. The Path Sword slashed down. A palm slapped horizontally. Path Sword, shatter. Lu Yin's pupils shrank. How was this possible? He knew that a top powerhouse could break the Karma Path Sword, but he didn't expect it to be so easy. It was as easy as slapping an ordinary sword away. That was the power of Karma. You know Karma too. Human, I'm getting more and more interested in you. Enter my death realm and I'll grant you eternal life. Life and Death Calamity Palm's voice shook the sky. The black light covered the entire Jiuxiao universe and then spread to the spiritualized universe and the Tianyuan universe. In the Tianyuan universe, the God King's light shone brightly. Countless light spots turned into a light screen and blocked Life and Death Calamity Palm's black light, causing the three universes to be black and white. Under the black light, countless people were in a daze. Many cultivators were killed by white bone and didn't even fight back. It was as if they were stupid. Under the white light, a clock appeared above countless people's heads. When the needle turned to a certain direction, everyone in the Tianyuan universe began to do the same thing. It was terrifying. Even the ancient god in the Tianyuan universe, Jianghu, was no exception. Only Mr. Mu and Chu Songyun were barely holding on with the help of the treasure. However, a clock loomed above their heads. Back off. Life and Death Calamity Palm looked at the God King and shouted. The God King was impatient. You should back off. I'll deal with this civilization. It's not your turn. Ba Rong trembled and kept shrinking his body to dodge. It was over. They were all ruthless characters. How many powerful creatures had this civilization offended? The three universes were fighting. Life and Death Calamity Palm and the God King were the most dazzling. Below them, there were many creatures from the Death Realm and God World. Ancestor Chen attacked Flowing Night with the Starry Fist, but it was easily resolved by Flowing Night. It wasn't an ordinary eternal realm, and Ancestor Chen was at most a rascal. In the spiritualized universe, Master Grass stared blankly at the door. It had failed. His last hope was gone. In the Jiuxiao universe, in the starry sky near Lu Yin's heart, three lines of divine power merged. The tricolored divine power surged into the sky. The Life and Death Calamity Palm was even more surprised. You can even control this kind of power to such an extent. Human, I admire you. I give you the right to not turn into a skeleton and enter my universe of death. As for this civilization, you can also join it, but you'll just have to change your life form. Furthermore, it can be yours. This is the best treatment for you. He tore open the divine power cocoon with one hand and walked out. Now he could control the tricolored divine power as he wished, and he was no longer as rational as he had been in the beginning. The boiling tricolored chi-si surged out and spread continuously, becoming the third color of the tricolored universe, resisting the black and white light. Life and Death Calamity Palm spoke again. You are no match for me. Lu Yin knew that he wasn't a match for a Life or Death Calamity Master. His opponent was a peak powerhouse who had harmonized with two laws of the universe, and he had yet to reach that level. However, it wasn't that easy to destroy the three universes. He looked up at Samsara Palm before suddenly looking at the Tianyuan cosmos. Get out here. Xuanhuan dash, a loud shout resounded through the three universes. It also left countless people shocked and in disbelief. Xuanhuan. What did he mean? This war is about. What did Xuanhuan have to do with him? And why was Master Lu so angry? What did Xuanhuan do? In the Tianyuan cosmos, on the back of Jianghu, a light swept past. Wang Xiaoyu and the Forgotten Ruins god slowly turned to look and saw Xuanhuan with a faint smile. He looked at the Ninth Heaven cosmos and Lu Yin. Finally, you're willing to face me. In the Ninth Heaven cosmos, Lu Yin stared at Xuanhuan, his gaze crossing the three universes. He clenched his fists as the chi-si behind him boiled. Golian was constantly changing the power of death to protect the Ninth Heaven cosmos and the spiritualized universe. The terrifying aura caused the void to distort, and even the bitter adversity powerhouses couldn't see clearly. Get out here. Lu Yin shouted again. With a wave of his hand, he tore open the starry sky and descended in front of Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan didn't move and Jianghu was terrified. It felt an unparalleled power descend, but it dissipated in an instant, unable to get close to Xuanhuan. In the Xuanhuan cosmos, the God King, flowing night god, and the others stopped and looked at Xuanhuan. Was he the unknown envoy of balance? For a long time, the civilizations of the divine realm had been used to understand the unknown. They knew about the existence of the envoy of balance, but they didn't know who he was. Even flowing night god didn't know. But now they saw him. The God King revealed his killing intent towards Xuanhuan, but it was only for a moment. So what if he killed the envoy of balance? Didn't he still have to face the entire unknown? Compared to that, they needed to leave more. They needed to leave this region of the starry sky and go somewhere else. This region was too dangerous. The Death Cosmos also stopped its battle and looked at Xuanhuan. Facing him and facing Lu Yin were two completely different concepts. This envoy of balance was unfathomable. Xuanhuan smiled and the surrounding space-time distorted. He brought Jianghu, the forgetful ruins god, and Wang Xiaoyu down to the ninth heaven cosmos and appeared in front of Lu Yin. Your Highness chess piece, how long can you last in this game of chess? Lu Yin looked at Xuanhuan, this familiar and trustworthy person. Yes, he was the envoy of balance. He was the person who had weakened the upper limit of the three universes and brought despair to Lu Yin and the entire human civilization. When had he started to suspect Xuanhuan? Lu Yin himself didn't know. Perhaps it was the first time he had seen so many hanging coffins through the stargazing deck? Or had Qinglian Xiangyu and the others told him that each unknown corresponded to a different color? Or had Xuanhuan analyzed the situation of the universe for him with his superb insight? And this situation shouldn't have been achieved by someone whose cultivation was only at the emissary level? He really didn't know. He wasn't surprised at all when this suspicion was confirmed. He wasn't surprised at all. It was as if Xuanhuan could be the envoy of balance. He schemed for war in the future. No matter how dangerous the situation was, he was safe and sound. It was as if nothing could break his transparent hanging coffin. Yes, he had once said that the transparent hanging coffin was given to him by the Hall of Honor. But at the Hall of Honor's level, this transparent hanging coffin wasn't enough for him to face the many dangers that would come later. Chaotic thoughts flashed through Lu Yin's mind. He looked at Xuanhuan's familiar yet unfamiliar face and recalled many of the things he had said. He didn't remember these words now, but when he had merged into Zhu's body and seen Xuanhuan throw him and eternity into Lucity, he recalled them in those hundreds of years in Lucity. Chess Path Master, sometimes it's not a good thing to think too much. Instead, you'll lose your greatest advantage. If a fisherman is hungry and there's only one fish in the lake, and another hungry fisherman comes, what do you think these two fishermen should do? I like to wait for an opportunity to find me. But the willing ones will take the bait. Sometimes life is like a lock that locks us firmly. Mortals have their own hardships and cultivators have their own hardships. No one can relax, and it's the same for eternity. Looking at the chessboard, the countdown to death has never stopped, whether it's seen or not. Chess Path Master, how long do you think you can last in this game of chess? There was too much. He and Xuanhuan had had countless conversations over the years, and they had played chess many times. They had lost more than they had won. And now, with civilization as chess pieces and life and death as the ending, it was also a game of chess. How long could he last in this game of chess? Why is it you? Lu Yin's tone was dry. Xuanhuan smiled. Why not me? I hope it's not you. Sorry, but hope can't change the truth. Besides, it's been me from the very beginning. It hasn't changed. Lu Yin slowly said, because your surname is Wang. Xuanhuan smiled. Yes, my surname is Wang. Behind him, the god of forgotten ruins closed his eyes. Yes, he was the Wang family's patriarch. His surname was Wang, so Wang Miaomiao had been his person from the very beginning, his junior. During the era of the Above Heaven sect, everyone thought that Wang Miaomiao was the Wang family's patriarch, but they were wrong. The real Wang family's patriarch was Xuanhuan, and he had always been there. He was also the person that Wang Xiaoyu had been looking for all this time, the person who had set up the entire Tianyuan universe. The outcome had been decided from the very beginning and no one could change it. Xuanhuan had been born much earlier than the primogenitor. If he had wanted to, the Tianyuan universe would have been destroyed long ago, and none of these things would have happened. However, these things did not affect him at all. You stayed in the Tianyuan universe all this time to wait for Hong Shuang, right? Lu Yin asked. Xuanhuan nodded. Yes, Hong Shuang entered the Mirage domain. I searched for her many times but I couldn't find her. She wasn't simple and she didn't want to come out. Either she took a path of no return, or she was waiting for an opportunity. So, his smile became even brighter. I gave her a chance. That's why the Above Heaven sect was so glorious, Lu Yin finished. Xuanhuan nodded. I brought glory to the above heaven sect, but it wasn't enough to attract xuanhuan. So I brought you eternity. Eternity had been created by Xuanhuan, and he had obtained the power of the death universe through bone grafting. Its flesh had come from humans, and its bloodline had come from an unknown divine power. Thus, eternity had betrayed humans, betrayed Wangma, and betrayed deathly stillness. Finally, it had gone to the Tianyuan universe and overthrown the above heaven sect. Wangwen had done everything silently. If eternity had been born in the Tianyuan universe, Hong Shuang would have been on guard. This was his caution, which had led to everything that had happened later. Eternity overthrew the above heaven sect and brought disaster to the Tianyuan universe. Although there were some accidents, such as that mysterious eternity and your master, Mr. Mu, their appearance made everything more exciting and real. Wangwen sighed. It's all part of the plan. It's not good if everything goes according to plan. Only when there are accidents will there be surprises, right? But Hong Shuang still hasn't appeared, Luyin said. Wangwen was helpless. Yes, she hasn't appeared. I thought that she might have gone against the ancient times, but that path can't be rashly pursued. What if it's fake? She created the illusion of going against the ancient times to lead me there. Then it won't be easy for me to return. This is actually the main reason why Hong Shuang left during the War of 9 Bases and entered the Mirage domain. She's very smart. She knew that I would make a move, so she lured me away in advance. Otherwise, 9 Bases would have been even more miserable. At this point, Wangwen glanced at Samsara Palm. Chapter 4471. At this moment, even the God Kings were listening. They were curious about Wangwen, the envoy of balance, as well as the human civilization. Space civilizations did not interact with each other, and this was a rare opportunity for them to learn more. The more they knew, the higher their chances of survival. This was common sense. Wangwen did not mind and stroked Tengu's fur. Since she won't come out and I can't take the risk of going against the ancients, there's only one way, which is to continue luring her. I'll give the human civilization hope and bring them despair again and again. I don't believe that she won't come out. I watched the 3 realms and 6 Daos during the above heaven era, the 9 mountains and 8 seas after that, including you, Luyin. I watched them all grow up with my own eyes, especially you, Luyin. You've really surprised me. You've really surprised me. Your talent is higher than anyone else's. At this point, his eyes burned with passion. To be honest, I can't bear to see you die. Your existence is the greatest variable in human civilization. I've only seen people like you during the 9 Bases era. That stunning war god disc, that freak who destroyed a fishing civilization with a single punch, and those geniuses who displayed invincible strength. I thought that these scenes would never happen again. You surprised me too much, but it's also because of your existence that red? Only frost can come out. Because someone like you cannot be nurtured. Fate, opportunity, talent, none of these can be lacking. I've never interfered with your development. I watched you climb step by step from an ant to the peak, but I was also worried that you wouldn't be able to control yourself. Even I don't want to let an existence like you develop unscrupulously. Luyin said in a low voice, that's why you severed the meteor realm with a single slash, preventing the immortal civilization from coming into contact with us. You also warned me that I wouldn't be able to exchange for anything through the mission rewards. Wangwen smiled and shook his head. I had no choice. I didn't expect you to force me to take action and even attract that divine realm civilization. Actually, the 3 universes can still survive, but your appearance forced me to destroy them. Luyin closed his eyes. Wangwen looked at Luyin. I've helped you a lot, so return it all to me today. Just treat it as a dream and it's time to wake up. Luyin opened his eyes and stared at Wangwen. This person had helped him a lot. When the Tianyuan universe had been facing the pressure of the spiritualized universe, Wangwen had proposed the cultivation culture attribute, which had given the Tianyuan universe the belief that it would definitely emerge victorious in a time of weakness. Wangwen had also proposed the concept of civilization, which had established a foundation for Lu Yin's thoughts. A cultivation culture could lead the hearts of people, and it had also allowed Lu Yin to jump out of the Tianyuan universe and look at the entire human civilization. These were all brought by Wangwen. Without Wangwen, Lu Yin would not have been able to unify the Tianyuan universe so smoothly. Without Wangwen, it would have been very difficult for him to reach his current level. His vision, his way of thinking, many of them originated from Wangwen's changes. Wangwen had used his ability to look down on everything within a square inch to broaden his horizons. This was something that others would never be able to do. These were more precious than battle skills, cultivation methods, and so on. But to him it was just a dream. He was the one who woke up from the dream, not them. He would be in a deep slumber forever with no possibility of waking up. When did you guess it was me? Xuanhuan was curious. Lu Yin's tone was icy. Do you care? Let me put it another way. Have you ever hidden it? Xuanhuan smiled. That's right, he had never hidden it. He had taken out the transparent floating coffin from the very beginning. Back then Lu Yin had not even been an enlighter. How nostalgic. Joining the unknown? Killing Miao Zun? You were the one who asked me these questions because you knew that my answer was the answer of the unknown. Lu Yin sighed. There was also by Xian'er's departure. It was not because she wanted to help him or obtain his forgiveness, but rather because she wanted to avoid Xuanhuan. Her daughter had died at Xuanhuan's hands, and Xuanhuan was the fate of the entire human civilization. But so what if he had guessed it? He had never dared to face the real Xuanhuan. Lu Yin had always pretended to guess and test the master of balance, but why? Perhaps it was because he wanted to get lucky, or perhaps it was because he wanted to numb Xuanhuan. He really did not have the ability to deal with Xuanhuan, who was the master of balance. It was not just his battle prowess but also his temperament. Xuanhuan was too frightening and his plans were meticulous. Lu Yin had hoped that he would have more time to deal with Xuanhuan. However, he had not expected xuanhuan to really leave. The Chaos Treasure red umbrella that she had left behind would appear because of Chu Songyun's breakthrough. This should be the key to Xuanhuan's decision to act. Otherwise, Xuanhuan would have used the God Realm civilization to warn Lu Yin that he would not be able to develop the three universes. There's one more thing. The one who betrayed xuanhuan was not Red Hero but you. Master Grass had arrived? Lu Yin was shocked. Xuanhuan was the one who betrayed xuanhuan? Xuanhuan looked at Master Grass in surprise. I thought that you would be on my side at this time. Master Grass stared at Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan did not love Red Hero. She loved you. Red Hero betrayed xuanhuan, but it was under your orders, right? Lu Yin looked at Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan was puzzled. How do you know? Just tell me, am I right? Master Grass asked. Xuanhuan smiled. That's right. Lu Yin understood. No wonder Xuanhuan had been keeping an eye on the Tianyuan universe. No matter how powerful xuanhuan was, Xuanhuan would not have stayed in the Tianyuan universe for so many years. Back then, Fengbua had kept an eye on Hongyan Mavis in the Mirage domain because their strengths were similar. Hongyan Mavis could leave at any time, and Fengbua was afraid of being found by the Nine Heavens universe. Why did Xuanhuan keep an eye on xuanhuan? Lu Yin understood. Xuanhuan must have grasped Xuanhuan's weakness, and Xuanhuan could not let her leave. Only lovers understood each other the best. Then what about Red Hero? Lu Yin asked. Master Grass shook his head. Red Hero is a traitor. That's right, but I'm not sure about his relationship with this person. Xuanhuan laughed. If you knew everything, wouldn't I be too useless? I'm curious. Grass, don't you want to keep the spiritualized universe's inheritance? Master Grass clenched his fists. You won't keep the spiritualized universe. None of the three universes will survive. Xuanhuan sighed. You're smarter than I thought. It seems like you've been hiding from me all this time. You were focused on keeping the spiritualized universe safe, but I saw through that and let you see the true strength of the unknown. I used that to draw out the spiritualized universe's schemes against the Tianyuan universe and weaken the upper limit of human civilization. I thought that this would draw out xuanhuan, but unfortunately it didn't. If you want to blame someone, blame His Highness. You went too far. Otherwise, I would have helped you keep the spiritualized universe. Master Grass's tone deepened. When Chishu died, you didn't tell the unknown. I knew that you were plotting against the three universes, but I couldn't figure out what you were scheming. The more you helped the three universes, the more confused I became. I only understood when Lu Yin told me that xuanhuan had entered the Mirage domain. Was that when you figured out my relationship with xuanhuan? Xuanhuan asked. Master Grass nodded. Xuanhuan stroked Tiango's fur. Humans like to guess, but they always get it right. Why do you think that's the reason? Lu Yin looked up. Because the greatest creation of intelligent creatures is lies, and their greatest weakness is habit. Xuanhuan sighed. I was the one who said that. You still remember? Lu Yin was silent. Xuanhuan said, because of habit, there's logic in your actions. Because of lies, you can only guess. Using guesses to judge habits and come to a conclusion. It's very interesting, isn't it? Lu Yin looked at Xuanhuan deeply. This was the source of Xuanhuan's power of imagination. He didn't forget that Xuanhuan had given him the power of imagination. The character Tian had the power of imagination. The word, slave, first encountered negative karma. Negative karma had the power of imagination. This power came from the fate of the Xuanhuan universe that they had guessed back then, which was xuanhuan. Imagination existed if you believed it, but it didn't exist if you didn't. Just as xuanhuan had said, the power of imagination was based on his theory. His Highness, is it because of habit that you don't want to attack me, or is it because you're afraid? Appearance? It seems like you don't want to kill me that much. Xuanhuan looked at Lu Yin and said slowly. Lu Yin's gaze was deep. You once asked me a question, but I didn't give you an answer. Now I want to know your answer. Fisherman? Yes. My answer? Xuanhuan's lips curled up. Of course it's to catch the fish first. You didn't answer my question either. How long can you last in this game of chess? Lu Yin held Go Lian tightly. He couldn't answer this question. It wasn't that he didn't know how long he could last, but that he didn't know how to survive. I also have a question. Master Grass looked at Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan looked at him curiously. Have you ever taken me seriously? Master Green Grass asked. Xuanhuan laughed. Do you care? Yes. Do you care about your own worth? Or your dignity? Master Grass shook his head and sighed. Neither. What I care about is the human in your eyes. Xuanhuan smiled. All right, I'll answer you. No. Master Grass wasn't surprised. He smiled bitterly. You really have never taken me seriously. That's great. Chapter 4472. Xuanhuan calmly looked at the surging life energy, not caring at all. Just as he had said, he did not take Master Grass seriously. However, the life energy suddenly changed, and an indescribable rhythm resounded in the ears of countless creatures. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. Was this breathing? Lu Yin felt it. Even the God King, Blood Tower Defender, Wonder Gate Defender, and the Eternal Realm Whitebone from the Death Universe, Nightflow God, Tyrant Rong, and the others all heard the sound of breathing. Such a loud breathing sound was not actually loud, but loud enough for everyone to hear. It was like breathing right next to their ears. At this moment, Lu Yin did not recognize Master Grass. His aura had changed and his gaze had changed. It was as if his entire being had grown taller, blocking Lu Yin's path. Lu Yin was dazed, as if he had seen the Primogenitor and Azure Lotus Defender. Xuanhuan frowned and slowly turned around. He had also heard the sound of breathing, but it was not from Master Grass. It was from Wang Xiaoyu. Master Grass was in front, and Wang Xiaoyu was behind him. Their breathing resounded in Xuanhuan's ears at the same time. Xuanhuan looked at Wang Xiaoyu in surprise. Wang Xiaoyu's slow breathing was exactly the same as Master Grass's. She was too close. Wang Miaomiao looked at Wang Xiaoyu in shock. Xiaoyu, you? I see. You've been looking for me all this time just for this day? Xuanhuan looked deeply at Wang Xiaoyu, then turned to Master Grass. When? Master Grass's voice rang out, but it did not affect his breathing. I don't remember clearly. Xuanhuan stroked Tingo's fur and smiled. Interesting. I underestimated you. This girl pretended to betray me and became the greatest traitor of humanity in the Tianyuan universe's primordial space. Her goal was to join the Eternals and find me, the one behind the Eternals. I've always known this. I originally thought of it as a joke. So what if I found her? I never truly wanted to hide. It didn't matter if I was discovered or took the initiative to reveal myself. But I never thought that this girl would be your backup. Xuanhuan's expression turned solemn as he stared at Master Grass. Who are you? Lu Yin also knew that something was wrong. So this was how it was. Wang Xiaoyu faked her betrayal in order to find the person behind the eternity. At first, she found Master Green Grass, but after she found him, she did not reunite with Ancestor Chen. Instead, she continued to follow Wang Miaomiao. This was because she already knew that Master Green Grass was not the person behind the eternity. It was no wonder that Wang Xiaoyu had never appeared. In fact, he had found it strange back then. With Wang Xiaoyu's strength, it was impossible for her to discover Wang Wen's existence. At most, she would have discovered Master Qing Chao. However, after Master Qing Chao appeared, she still followed Wang Miaomiao. This was the truth. Was this all part of Master Grass's plan? Was everything he had done in the past an illusion? What was real? What was fake? This was the first time Lu Yin had met a Master Grass. Not only him, Shueta Shangyu, Jingmen Shangyu, Master Quding and the others were all staring at Master Qing Chao blankly, as if this was the first time they had met him. At this moment, the Grass Grandmaster was completely different from what they knew. Master Green Grass breathed slowly, keeping in step with Wang Xiaoyu. Me? My name is not worth mentioning, but if you must have a title, you can call me Mi Jin. Lu Yin's pupils shrank. What? Jingmen Shangyu and the rest were shocked. They looked at Master Qingqiao in disbelief. What did he say? Mi Jin? Bewildered by the emperor? Wang Wen's expression also changed. Mi Jin? Everyone who heard this was dumbfounded. How could it be? Wasn't bewildered by the emperor already dead? How could he be Master Grass? Lu Yin could not believe it. He stared at Master Grass blankly. He was bewildered by the emperor? How could it be? He had seen Master Grass's karma. It was impossible for him to be bewildered by the emperor. Master Grass had his own cultivation path and life. How could he be bewildered by the emperor? Wang Wen looked at Master Grass in a daze. After a while he recovered and praised, "So that's how it is. No wonder even I was tricked by you." That's right. Throughout the history of the three universes, other than Mi Jin, no one can trick me. Mi Jin, you are ruthless. Master Grass closed his eyes and exhaled. I have no choice. How can I deal with you without paying a price? Mi Jin is me and so is Qingqiao. Everyone knows that I often lose myself, but this is the time when I entered Qingxiao's body to cultivate. I have a lot of time to cultivate, but for you all, I had to give it up. For you all, I gave up the opportunity to cultivate and break through the laws of the two universes. I knew that even if I did, I wouldn't be able to do anything to you all. Because of me in the Nine Firmaments universe, you all would be apprehensive and take action. To deal with you all, I used Qingxiao's identity to kill my Mi Jin identity and gain your trust. Everything I did was real. Mi Jin is indeed dead, but I am also Mi Jin. This you all refers to you, Red Hero, and the Unknown. I hope to use Qingxiao's identity to join the Unknown, but the Unknown looked down on me. Still, it's fine. I just need to focus on watching you. Lu Yin was shocked. What a great scheme. What a great scheme. What a ruthless plan. Wang Wen had given up on his own cultivation just to scheme against Wang Wen. Wang Wen had been secretly watching the three universes. If Lu Yin hadn't done something real, he wouldn't have been able to deceive Wang Wen. Mi Jin was truly dead, and he had left behind an eternal life cultivation seed that was now in Jingmen Shangyu's body. It was also true that part of Mi Jin's consciousness had turned into Huizhu in the Tianyuan universe. Huizhu had also set up a plan in the Tianyuan universe to deal with the Eternals. All of this was real. As Lu Yin uncovered the truth bit by bit, he also confirmed the history of the past. But who would have thought that all of this history was part of a scheme against Wang Wen? Lu Yin had always believed that his innate talent was extraordinary, and he was confident that he was the strongest since ancient times. But when he faced Master Grass, he felt that he couldn't compare. Master Grass wasn't strong and Mi Jin wasn't strong either. But their boldness was unparalleled. Their intelligence was invincible. Throughout human history, many people had sacrificed themselves. That kind of indescribable greatness brought about a shock that surpassed any battle. This truth left everyone dumbfounded. Jingmen Shangyu felt like she was a child who had been fooled so easily. She had always hated Master Grass because of Mi Jin's death, but she didn't know that this was the truth. Wang Wen couldn't help but clap his hands. Impressive, impressive. You want to escape and deal with me and Red Hero at the same time. You don't know what's going on, but I have to say that your boldness and scheming are enough to rank you in the top 3. But the absolute gap between us can't be made up for by Golden Cicada Shell. You want to deal with me with just this girl? Master Grass shook his head. Of course not. Have you heard of the Death Knot of Two Needles? Wang Wen's expression changed slightly. The Seventh Stronghold. The Seven Needles of Yama. Grandmaster Qingqiao's gaze turned cold. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. In the next moment, a thread connected him to Wang Wen and Wang Xiaoyu. If one looked closely, they would realize that it was not a thread, but a series of needles. Those needles originated from breathing. Every time they breathed, a needle would appear. A series of needles connected the three of them, and then they appeared in front of Shueta Shangyu, Jingmen Shangyu, Reverend Quding, and countless others. Master Grass's voice was heard. The Death Knot of Two Needles has been opened. My heart gate and Xiaoyu's heart gate are connected to Wang Wen. Everyone, are you willing to be connected to our heart gates and live and die together? Shueta Shangyu and the others touched the needles without hesitation. In an instant, silk threads connected everyone. 1, 2, 3, until there were countless of them. The silk threads continued to spread throughout the Ninth Heaven universe and then the spiritualized universe, connecting countless people. These people were the top masters of the two universes, and there were 3 Eternal Realm Masters. Ba Rong avoided it and didn't want to be connected, but Master Grass forcibly connected them. That was 4 Eternal Realm Masters. Other than the Eternal Realm Masters, most of them were above the Progenitor Realm. This heart gate connected all the top masters of the two universes except for Lu Yin. Lu Yin stared blankly. He hadn't expected Master Grass to have the inheritance of Yama's 7 needles. Wang Wen also looked at this scene, and his gaze gradually became solemn. No one could ignore Yama's 7 needles. The moment he found out that Master Grass was Mijin Xiangyu, he knew that things were getting out of hand. He could look down on Master Grass, Qinglian Xiangyu, and even Zhou Qian who had fought with him in accordance with the laws of the 3 universes, but he couldn't look down on Mijin Xiangyu. Master Life and Death Calamity also watched this scene. Was this the 7 needles of Yama's 7 needles? He really missed the Battle of Jilei. Every stronghold had its own absolute power, and Yama's 7 needles had been quite strong. It had the effect of reversing life and death, similar to Master Grass's, but also superior. He hadn't expected the 7 needles of Yama's 7 needles to be passed down after the destruction of Jilei. This was great. He wanted these 7 needles of Yama's 7 needles. In just a short while, the entire 9th Heaven universe and the spiritualized universe were covered in threads connected by needles. Master Grass looked at Wang Wen. Now we are connected to your heart gate. Any death will be counted on you. Wang Wen, are you willing to bear the price of everyone's deaths? Lu Yin understood. Wang Wen also understood and he smiled. Grass, no Mijin, right? You're being a little shameless. Master Grass smiled bitterly. The gap between us is indescribable and no power can surpass it. How can we deal with you? This is the only way. Now it's your turn. Are you willing to bear the price of all of our deaths? Is there any other way? Wang Wen smiled. If all of your deaths are counted on me, it will indeed be a headache. The binding of karma can be close to perfection. Alright, although it's a pity I won't participate in this round. Without me, I hope that your performance will be more exciting. He then looked at Lu Yin and smiled. Your Highness chess piece, this might be the last time I'll call you that. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. I've been very happy. See you then. He then patted Tiango and a door appeared in front of him. Tiango walked towards the door. Wang Miaomiao glanced at Wang Xiaoyu and then walked towards the door as well. Wang Xiaoyu stood where she was and stared at Wang Wen's back as he slowly walked away. She felt her strength slowly dissipating as her body slowly fell to the ground. Chapter 4473. Lu Yin hurriedly teleported over to catch Wang Xiaoyu. Wang Xiaoyu's eyes were dazed and unfocused. She stared blankly at the sky, her face ashen. Her lips curled into a smile as she raised her hand, wanting to grab onto something. Before Wang Wen entered the door and left, he looked back. Anyone can betray me but not the Wang family. I brought your life here, so I'll take it with me. With that, the door disappeared. Wang Wen left with Tengu and Wang Miaomiao. Lu Yin held Wang Xiaoyu in his arms. When had he attacked? He hadn't seen it at all. Master Qingqiao also came to Wang Xiaoyu's side and said sadly, "Girl." Wang Xiaoyu could no longer hear him. Her world had lost its color, and there was nothing but a gray sky. It was raining and there was only that figure lying on the ground, drenched by the rain. He had chased after her for so many years and now he could finally be free. Wang Xiaoyu raised her hand as if she wanted to grab onto that figure. Lu Yin hurriedly teleported her over to Progenitor Qin. The Tianyuan universe couldn't see what was happening in the Nina Firmament's universe, and they weren't connected to Master Qingxiao's heart. Thus, Progenitor Qin didn't know what was happening. When he saw Wang Xiaoyu in Lu Yin's arms, his pupils shrank and he stared blankly. I'm sorry I couldn't protect her. Lu Yin handed Wang Xiaoyu over to Progenitor Qin. Progenitor Qin hugged her tightly without saying a word. Lu Yin looked up. It was really raining. Progenitor Qin didn't cry and neither did Wang Xiaoyu. However, the sky was crying. Just like when they first met, it was also raining. Hey, don't die so easily. I like the rain so you can't die in the rain. Remember, my name is Wang Xiaoyu. That sweet voice lit up Xia Shang's path. Whoosh. The universe swayed as the God King attacked. Mr. Mu. He and Chu Songyun hurriedly used their stabilized treasures to block. The God King's strength was enough to kill them, but he didn't attack because of the karmic restraints. Life or death calamity could have used his full strength, but Lu Yin blocked it. Lu Yin glanced at Progenitor Qin, who was crying silently as he hugged Wang Xiaoyu. He brought Ba Rong over to temporarily block night flow and the ancient god. Jiang Feng sighed. Ba Rong felt that a disaster was about to befall them. How could this civilization exist? Lu Yin teleported back to the 9 Firmaments universe and gazed into the distance. Come on. No matter who wanted to destroy the three universes, they had to pay the price. The black light, the white light, and the tricolored divine power clashed. Lu Yin charged at life or death tribulation palm, and his tricolored god force blasted outwards. It had only been a short time since the life and death calamity attacked the human civilization. They had only fought a few times and Xuanhuan had appeared, but the human civilization had already lost 2 eternal realm experts. If not for some scruples, the immortal realm of the human civilization would not be able to stop the powerful enemy. If Lu Yin wanted to break out of this predicament, he would have to defeat the life or death calamity. Otherwise, if the God King went all out, he would be able to slaughter the entire human civilization. Not to mention the eternal life in the death universe. Bai Yu and Bai Gu, who had sunk into eternal life, obeyed the orders of the universe of death and attacked the human civilization. They had their own thoughts, but they were even more tortured because they could not break free from the control of the life and death calamity. The only thing they could do was suppress their strength as much as possible. This was also the reason why Qing Xing and Dan Mu could fight against the 2 white bones. Otherwise they would have died a long time ago. No matter how one looked at it, the human civilization was walking on the edge of a cliff. The collapse of any point would cause the collapse of the entire civilization. Lu Yin was going all out, his celestial eye locked onto the samsara palm and the tricolor god. The life and death calamity pressed down with a finger. Without looking at Lu Yin, the giant finger bone boiled with the power of death and collided with the tricolored divine power, creating a huge boom. The tricolored divine power was suppressed. Lu Yin had used the tricolored divine power to suppress experts like Mudblade and Mingyu, but he had no advantage against the life and death calamity. He punched out Starry Fist. The life and death calamity opened his fingers and grabbed at Lu Yin from above. The Starry Fist was caught by the palm bone. Although it paused for a moment, its power was annihilated by the boundless power of death. Lu Yin panted heavily. Sirius operated in the starry sky above his heart. The stars of death revolved wildly, devouring the power of death. Golian's vitality had been used by him to create the power of death to resist the life and death calamity and the law of the God King. If he wanted to increase the power of death, he could only devour it. However, his devouring was useless. The power of death was completely controlled by the life and death calamity, and it turned into apocalyptic clouds. Behind the clouds was the giant palm bone. Human, you should be proud that you were tricked by the master of balance. Come with me and I will give you a new life. Lu Yin looked up. The God Sealing Catalog's golden light dispelled the darkness, but it was quickly enveloped by darkness again. The triple firmament sword intent, hidden sword, sword Dao River slashed at the palm bone, but it was crushed by the palm bone. The karma sword hidden within slashed down. The palm bone paused again and the power of death suddenly disappeared from the sky. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Yin teleported in front of the life and death calamity. He used the starry fist in his right hand and the tricolored divine power in his left. Boom. The life and death calamity faced the 2 powerful forces head-on. His other arm blocked in front of him and a black and white cross appeared on his palm. Seal of life and death. With a bang, Lu Yin was struck by a palm. He was sent flying, and the starry fist and tricolored divine power were both shattered. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. He looked at the life and death calamity in shock. The difference was too great. He couldn't win at all. The life and death calamity palm's palm bone descended, and the black and white cross formed the seal of life and death suppressed Lu Yin. The terrifying pressure repelled the tricolored divine power, causing the death calamity to envelop even more people. The eyes of those who were enveloped by the death calamity became unfocused as they walked towards death. Their bones tore apart their flesh and the white bones danced and cheered. Lu Yin saw it. Was this the death calamity song and dance? The first time he had encountered the Mud Doll in the Mud Kingdom, he had obtained the records of a certain civilization. He had seen the memories of that civilization's creatures, which recorded the most tragic scene of humanity. Countless people's knees had been shattered, and the only way to get close to the person who had died in battle was to crawl over on their knees. There was no other way. Between them there was a death calamity line. It was an abyss, and countless people had used their lives to fill the abyss, wanting to fill it up so that the people behind them could crawl over. They had filled it up and some people had crawled over, but those who had crawled over had become living skeletons. The more people who crawled over, the more skeletons there were. These skeletons danced around the person who had died in battle. This scene appeared once again. The human skeletons were cheering and dancing. What were they happy about? The descent of the death calamity universe? Above his head, the seal of life and death descended. It shattered the void. Lu Yin disappeared, and he arrived in front of the dancing skeletons and looked at them. They were singing and dancing, but their faces were distorted. They were clearly skeletons, but their faces were distorted. They were clearly happy, but they were filled with extreme sorrow. They could not speak, and they could only cheer. If they had flesh and blood, they would be crying, wailing, and wailing in despair. They were humans, but they were cheering for the death calamity universe. Lu Yin clenched his fists, and extreme anger and killing intent filled his mind. His eyes were scarlet as he stared at Samsara Palm. You deserve to die. In the distance, Master Grass and the others were fighting against the Eternal Realm skeletons in the Death Calamity universe, and they also saw this scene. He was helpless. So what if he had schemed against Xuanhuan? He had already done his best, but no one had expected this desperate situation. It was like when Jiu Lei had faced the end of the world and many civilizations had besieged him. Even someone as strong as Jiu Lei could only be destroyed. Their 3 universes had also encountered the same situation. However, true despair had only just arrived. A bridge extended from an invisible distance, spanning across the 3 universes. Lu Yin's scarlet eyes stared at the bridge. It was so familiar. Was that Nibi's bridge? Master Grass saw it and was stunned. Impossible, how could this be? He had also been to the forced war against Mudwater Country and had seen that bridge. He could not believe that Xuanhuan had actually found Mudwater Country. How many trump cards did he have? Xuanhuan wanted to destroy all of human civilization in one fell swoop. In the Heaven's Origin universe, Wei Rong watched quietly. He had also seen the bridge, but he did not understand what it was. However, he knew that the end of humanity had arrived. This was Xuanhuan, and no one could compare to him in terms of understanding. Wei Rong had once competed with Xuanhuan in the Outerverse and lost, but he had also served Lu Yin at the same time. Even though the two of them specialized in different areas, Wei Rong was good at planning and strategizing, while Xuanhuan was good at overall planning. Xuanhuan only wanted to do this. Now that Xuanhuan had made a move, how could he leave any path of survival for humanity? Was it completely over? Nibi slowly appeared on the bridge, and its terrifying aura caused even Samsara Palm and God Kings to feel apprehensive. Nibi had 3 eternal realms, and it was a peak existence that could truly match the laws of 3 universes. It was also Xuanhuan's true method to deal with Lu Yin. This was because one of Nibi's tridents contained an immortal plume, and its bridge could connect to endless distances, which was enough to deal with teleportation. Tingo slowly traversed the void. On its back, Xuanhuan's gaze was calm. This distance was far enough, and those people's deaths would not be blamed on him. If they were closer, then those deaths would be blamed on him, and that would be a loss. However, if they thought that forcing him away would give them a way out, then they were too naive. Your Highness, chess piece, you should understand me. Who can break through my arrangements? That includes yourself. Teleportation is not omnipotent. At that moment, a tiny door appeared beside him. Time is limited. If the 3 universes are not destroyed during this time, then you can ask the omniscient tracer for help through the door. Are you sure you can do it? Xuanhuan was confident. Of course. My door can stop most of the omniscient tracer's reinforcements, but there is one that it cannot stop. Then let's see if it will go. Nibi's arrival brought true despair to humanity. Lu Yin was powerless. He could not even deal with Samsara Palm, let alone Nibi. Nibi was a peak expert that the omniscient tracer cared about. Lu Yin, even if you die, you have to go. Remember, live. Master Greengrass's voice reached Lu Yin's ears. Master Shueta also sent a voice transmission. Lu Yin live. Live? Master Xingmen shouted. Master Quding looked at Lu Yin. Live. Chapter 4474. Everyone could die but not Lu Yin. As long as he lived, there would be hope for human civilization. They knew that the 3 universes were doomed. Even one of these top experts would be difficult to deal with, but now 3 had appeared. Lu Yin hated the lack of time. If he had more time, he would have dealt with them one by one. Whether it was the Divine Realm or the Mudwater Kingdom, they were all on his list of enemies, as well as the 7 Abyss of the Death Universe. But time was too short. From the very beginning, the glory of 9th base made them look like birds trapped in a cage. No matter how high they flew, they couldn't escape the cage. On the bridge, the trident stabbed towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin teleported and reappeared behind Nibiluo with the trident. Lu Yin pushed forward, his tricolored godly force boiling as the seal of life and death descended upon him. He could not teleport in time and was struck down. And Ibiluo looked at Samsara Master, the Death Universe. The Mudwater Kingdom. Are you here because of the unknown? Because humans must be destroyed. And Ibiluo spoke in a low voice, this human is my prey. Samsara Master spoke in a low voice, he's also my prey. Is that so? Then let's see who can snatch him first. And Ibiluo waved his hand and the trident disappeared, stabbing towards Luin. At the same time, Nina Firmament's universe was trapped in a giant cage that kept shrinking. Luin looked up and saw that it really was a cage. And Ibiluo's existence was reasonable and could do anything he wanted. The first time he had heard of this rule, Luin had been in disbelief. He had not expected to face it today. And Ibiluo wanted to capture Luin like a bird and create a cage for Nina Firmament's universe. He had created a giant cage. Samsara Master flipped his palm and extended the seal of life and death. The two black and white lines fixed the shrinking cage in place. At the same time, his other hand reached for Luin, but it was knocked away by the trident. And Ibiluo and Samsara Master tried to capture Luin while resisting each other. And Ibiluo wanted to capture Luin. Luin had grasped too many things, especially karma, which was what Ibiluo valued the most. Samsara Master also wanted to take Luin to the Death Universe. This human was worthy of being nurtured by the Death Universe and would definitely become the Eighth Abyss. Luin was besieged by two behemoths, and even if he wanted to escape, he couldn't. It was impossible for him to win either. He could only use himself as bait to delay them. He wanted to give the human civilization a chance to breathe. However, their battle had already resulted in the deaths of many people. This was the darkest day of the three universes. He wanted to use teleportation to bring these top-notch experts away. As long as he brought them away, they would not be able to catch up in a short period of time. They could deal with them one by one and there would be a chance of survival. But he could not do it. Back then, when he wanted to take Jihe away from the red coats under the stars, he had been stopped, let alone these absolute powerhouses themselves. The Gate of Wonder pierced her spear towards the trident. She managed to capture the trajectory of the trident with great difficulty, but at the moment of collision, the shocking cloud shattered and her body flew out. Her strength was far from enough to intervene in such a war. And Ibiluo wouldn't even look at her. Alarmed Gate Xianxia spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. She stabilized herself and was about to continue attacking when a figure appeared in front of her. A red sword gleam flashed and slashed down diagonally. Hiss, blood splattered across the sky. She stared blankly at the person in front of her as she slowly fell. Mother! Qingyun shouted. The startling gate of Xianxia continued to fall. Qingyun rushed over and barely managed to turn around. He rushed out through the door and hugged Qingyun as they fell to the ground. Stay away from that person. That's Red Hero. He's actually here as well. Red Hero wielded a long sword that dripped with fresh blood and burned the void. His gaze shifted from the Gate of Wonder to Luin, where he was being attacked by two terrifying powerhouses. His gaze turned cold. Xuanhuan had easily accomplished something that he could not. Was it because of his understanding of the three universes? No, it was because of his control over the various civilizations that allowed him to easily use the Mudwater Kingdom, the God Realm, the Immortal Plume, and even the Death Universe. This was a true envoy of balance. The unknown envoy of balance was a very special position. Balance seemed simple, but it was actually the most difficult. He not only balanced the various civilizations, but also the unknowns themselves. He had once hoped to become an envoy of balance, but he had never been able to reach that position. He was far inferior to Xuanhuan. His arrival was also thanks to Xuanhuan, who had used his strength to block Jiuwen and the others. Otherwise, Jiuwen would have led the West Upper Peak to fight to the death. 70% of Lu Yin's strength would have been broken, and his emotionless Dao would have been heavily injured. He had also become a target of the envoy of balance. He had once been used by Xuanhuan to betray Hongshuang, and now he was still being used. No matter how much his cultivation changed, this fact would never change. Xuanhuan was unfathomable. But it didn't matter. The three universes had to be destroyed, so what if he was used again? Above his head, the bloody blade fell. Red Hero raised his hand casually and slashed out with his sword. The blade was broken and the Blood Tower defender was forced back. The broken blade was covered in a blood-red color, and layers of blood-red light expanded. Each layer of blood-red light turned into a hideous blood-red creature, which was a world that the Blood Tower defender could not see. The blood 9 layers produced the blood of the 9 most powerful creatures without a bloodline. That was because the 9 creatures were the true face of the blood 9th layer. Layers of crimson light transformed into terrifying creatures that roared and charged at Red Hero. Each creature was endowed with the destructive power of an ordinary eternal. This was Blood Tower Defender's killer move. Red Hero's gaze turned cold. Trash. He then slashed out again. This time he tore through the blood 9 layers and slashed at Blood Tower Defender. Blood Tower Defender raised his blade to block, but it was easily torn apart. A huge wound appeared on his body, and he took several steps back before falling to one knee. Red Hero looked at him coldly. Neither you nor that woman is my opponent. If it weren't for the karma, I would have killed you long ago. Get lost. Blood Tower Defender raised his head and stared at Red Hero with red eyes. As a human, you betrayed us again and again. Red Hero, you deserve to die. Red Hero sneered. It's not up to you to say that. The 3 universes will be completely destroyed today. In fact, in my opinion, humans shouldn't exist. Looking at the distance, humans are simply aliens. Blood Tower Defender roared. Blood Tower, behind you, alarmed Defender shouted. Blood Tower Defender turned around and saw a skeleton from the Death Universe. It was an Eternal Life level. There were several Eternal Life realm skeletons under Life and Death Calamity Master, but they were not very strong. They could have killed these Eternal Life realm skeletons as long as they had enough time. But they couldn't do anything when the top powerhouses came one after another. Now that he was seriously injured, he couldn't even deal with an Eternal Life realm skeleton. The Eternal Realm white bone pierced into the Blood Tower Lord's body. Its entire body seemed to want to merge into the Blood Tower Lord's body, trying to tear his flesh apart. Xuanhuan rushed out and slashed at the Eternal Life realm skeleton. Go away. The Eternal Life realm skeleton suddenly turned and tore apart Blood Tower Defender's body while splitting Xuanhuan into 2. Blood splashed in the sky. Xianxia growled, holding the broken blade and slashing the Eternal Life realm white bone, cutting off a small part of the white bone. But the remaining skeleton still tore his flesh apart. Alarmed Defender vomited blood and wanted to help. In the distance, Master Qding was facing 2 Eternal Life realm skeletons alone. One was his opponent, and the other was the skeleton that Alarmed Defender had dealt with before. They were now attacking him. Red Hero looked around and released red light. He was looking for the 10-eyed crow. The 10-eyed crow was gone. Lu must have hidden it. Found it. He stepped out and headed towards the Xuanhuan universe. Lu Yin didn't have time to care about Red Hero's appearance. The trident kept chasing after him. Under the seal of life and death, the tricolored divine power was suppressed. He kept vomiting blood and teleported to dodge again and again, but he didn't dare to stay too far away. He had to stall these 2 powerhouses. His mind raced. He couldn't give up. There was no such thing as a dead end. There was always a chance of survival in any situation. Master Qingqiao looked at this scene and was also looking for a way to break out. Lu Yin had long guessed that Xuanhuan was the envoy of balance. Fuang Xiaoyu knew it meant that he knew too. But so what? Like Lu Yin, he wanted to stall for time. Xuanhuan had existed for too long. He was himself. No matter when they faced each other, the power they needed to fight was hopeless. Xuanhuan had pulled the Divine Realm, Muddy Kingdom, Death Universe, and even Red Hero this time. But if they fought earlier, the Divine Realm, Death Universe, and Red Hero wouldn't change. Even if Muddy Kingdom didn't come, he could still pull in other powerful forces, such as Xianling. So he was also waiting and stalling for time to deal with one powerful enemy after another. Whether it was Red Hero or the Divine Realm, if they were dealt with, the pressure on the 3 universes would be greatly reduced. But it was too late. Or rather, Xuanhuan didn't give them a chance. Xuanhuan wanted to completely destroy the 3 universes. Master Qingqiao had done enough to banish Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan was a truly invincible powerhouse, and if he still existed, the 3 universes would have no hope. But now, even if there was a slim chance of survival, they could still take a gamble. Lu Yin looked into the distance. He had never been in such a sorry state before. In the past, even if his cultivation hadn't been high, there had been powerhouses supporting him. But now he was alone. Master Qingqiao took a deep breath. He had been constantly making preparations to deal with this day, but his preparations had been completely destroyed by Xuanhuan's use of the white unknown to make the portal ineffective. No matter what preparations they had made, they couldn't have arrived in such a short time. They could only rely on themselves. Lu Yin, if the 3 universes truly have no hope, you must survive. You must. Master Qingqiao moved to help Blood Tower Defender. Blood Tower Defender's life was hanging by a thread. Lu Yin panted heavily and raised his arms. His body was withered, but the power of death was still frantically released to resist the death rain. With a bang, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Behind him, the trident slapped him horizontally, and his body slammed into the ground. Immediately after, the trident was blasted away by the seal of life and death. The giant palm turned and grabbed at Lu Yin. The black plaza rotated like a card and slashed at Nibi Lo. At that moment, the seal of life and death that had been supporting the cage broke. Shattered. The cage suddenly shrank and shattered the mother tree. Above the tree crown, the startled sparrow terrace, and the sea of karma were all torn apart. The entire ninefold universe was almost overturned. Nibi Lo faced the slash from the black plaza and formed two hands. He clasped his palms together and immediately attacked the death rain. Never forget merit. Chapter 4475. This palm traversed the void and the power of deathly stillness, forcefully entering Samsara Palm's body. Samsara Palm's enormous skeleton body stopped. Lu Yin suddenly appeared behind it, his celestial eye staring at Nibiluo. Crow-fixed body. Nibiluo was fixed. At this moment the two top powerhouses paused. The power of deathly stillness erupted from Lu Yin's body once more. One of his eyes was black and the other white, and his hair fell to his waist. Black gas coiled around his upper body like a rotating nebula, turning into a white chain. He held the Golian in his hand and activated the deathly stillness transformation. Then his godly power boiled at the same time. The tricolored godly power transformation was still present. One of his pupils was black and white, while the other was scarlet. The deathly stillness transformation and godly power transformation existed at the same time, dividing his body into two halves. The power of deathly stillness and the tricolored godly power simultaneously filled Lu Yin's mind, causing him to fall into madness. These two powers were not what he had been cultivating all this time, so it was easy for him to lose control. Now he wanted to forcefully fuse them so he could no longer control himself. He roared at the sky. Using his own extreme power as a guide, the Golian lifted and slashed. The black, white and tricolored godly power were drawn out at the same time, striking the back of Samsara Palm's head. This was Lu Yin's strongest attack so far, surpassing the deathly stillness transformation and the tricolored godly power transformation. This attack shocked even Nibiluo. It was unheard of for an attack to reach such a level without breaking through to immortality. Samsara Palm felt a chill at the back of his head. Inside his body, Nibiluo's forgetful world technique made it difficult for him to move, so he could only let the attack hit him. At this moment, a huge shadow soared into the sky and blocked Samsara Palm's head. It faced the attack head-on and was easily torn apart. It was the Eternal Realm skeleton that had knocked Samsara Palm out of Crow-fixed body's range. It had no power to fight back under Lu Yin's attack and was directly split in two. The attack still landed on the back of Samsara Palm's head. Bang! With a loud bang, space-time shattered and countless cracks spread across the three universes. Countless people spat out mouthfuls of blood, their faces pale. The power of deathly stillness in the skeletons of the Death Universe suddenly paused, and some of them even fell to the ground. The God King was shaken as he looked into the distance, feeling the aftermath of the attack. Even he was afraid of this power. The continent of the nine clouds was submerged in the two black and three-colored godly energies. The pure black light was lifted. Countless mountains shattered and oceans evaporated. Under the slash, the glaring light was like a sun rising in the three universes, making it impossible for people to look at it directly. With a kacha sound, the Golian cracked open. Then it shattered and fell down. Every fragment contained a deathly stillness and vitality, falling down like meteors. Lu Yin grasped a small portion of the Golian and stared at the back of his head. He couldn't help but despair. There was a clear and deep cut on the back of his head behind the life and death calamity. However, it was only a slash mark. Lu Yin had originally wanted to use this attack to strike the shattering palm Samsara's head and then use it to slash at Nibi Lo. Yet even the life and death calamity palm couldn't shatter it. This was already the greatest strength he could muster. If Nibiluo hadn't given Zhang Wuji a blow, and if he hadn't used a sneak attack to stop Nibiluo, he wouldn't have had the chance to strike. But why was it still like this? Lu Yin felt powerless as he stared blankly. Samsara Palm slowly raised his hand and rubbed the back of his head. He then turned around and stared at Lu Yin with his empty skeletal eyes. You are the first person to injure me since the Battle of Nine Bases. To me it is a shame that you are not an eternal being. Die. With that he raised his giant skeletal palm and slapped out. Lu Yin's body was sent flying. Along the way he smashed through the 9 firmaments and shattered the stars. Half of his body was numb and the Golian fell off. The death rain was released once again. An Ibeluo's cage kept shrinking with Lu Yin as the center. It tore apart the heavens and earth, creating gray ripples that were traces of time. The tributaries of the river of time were boiling. In the face of a battle of this level, time was meaningless. You can't kill him. An Ibeluo moved to block the descending seal of life and death, but his own trident pierced through Lu Yin's abdomen and lifted him up. Lu Yin's blood flowed along the trident, dyeing it red. Samsara palms spun the black plaza and collided with the trident. Flames flickered and Lu Yin was sent flying by the huge force. The deathly stillness and tricolored godly force on his body retreated. These two forces couldn't help him. This was an absolute difference. He was now a toy for these two giants to fight over. At the same time, in the Heaven Origin universe, Red Hero looked at the giant ten-eyed crow in front of him. He had finally found it. Ordinary Eternal Realm experts would need a year to travel from the Nine Firmaments universe to the Heaven Origin universe, but it was nothing to him. How did Lu Yin do it? How could he divert the ten-eyed crow? But it was no longer important. No matter how much power this kid had, it couldn't make up for the difference. He glanced coldly at the Nine Firmaments universe and saw Lu Yin being fought over. He spat out blood and was heavily injured. Damn it, this lowly thing dared to scheme against him. Everyone in the three universes had to die. Red Hero frowned and slowly turned around. He didn't know when, but a figure was very close to him. Your pattern is very strange. Red Hero sized up the newcomer in surprise. It was Jianghu. The ten-eyed crow was located in the Heaven Origin universe, and Red Hero was discovered as soon as he arrived. Jianghu wanted to attack immediately, but he could hide from Si Qin's perception, but he couldn't hide from Red Hero. He thought he would have a chance to attack. Jianghu was also helpless. Red Hero was too unfathomable. Divine King, Samsara Palm and Enai Beluo all looked extremely powerful, but Red Hero might not be below them. It was just that this person was better at hiding. Follow me and there's no hope for this universe, Red Hero said indifferently. He admired Jianghu because he was very close to him. This was somewhat inconceivable. An ordinary Eternal Realm cultivator? No, not exactly ordinary. His aura was very strange and unstable, but he was actually so close to him. Even an existence that was compatible with two universes might not be able to do so. And why was this person's aura so strange? It seemed like eternal life, but it also didn't. He felt like he had heard of such a situation before. Jianghu was helpless. I know, but I'm not good at being a traitor. Red Hero was cold. I'll give you one more chance. Follow me and you can live. Then he raised his hand and bent his fingers. The void kept folding in the direction of the Nine Firmaments universe. The folded void kept twisting and fusing. Finally, the scene was pulled infinitely closer and reflected in Jianghu's eyes. He saw Lu Yin struggling and spitting out blood. He tried his best to counterattack, but he was powerless. He saw Master Qing Chao fighting to the death to protect the Blood Tower Protector. He saw Master Quding struggling to cope. He saw the Startle Gate Protector on the verge of death. He saw countless blood rain falling. Seeing this, do you still think there is hope? Follow me. This is the chance I'm giving you, the only chance. Jianghu saw Lu Yin fighting back again and again, but he was suppressed again and again. His body was breaking and he was in a desperate situation. He closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. He didn't run away. He can teleport, but he still didn't. He ran away. Red Hero frowned. Stubborn. Jianghu opened his eyes and looked at Red Hero with a smile. Do you have children? Red Hero's eyes were cold. You don't. Jianghu shook his head. You won't either. If you have children, you won't watch your children being bullied by others while you run away. So you are a traitor. What you betrayed is not only your own civilization, but also your self-esteem as a human. I'm sorry to let you down. It's better to have some self-esteem. After that, thunder exploded and he took a step forward. Everything in the starry sky was alive. He closed his eyes and could see more clearly. Everything began from nothing and the universe itself was nothing. The sword edge containing thunder kept approaching Red Hero. Red Hero stared at Jianghu coldly, but under this coldness there was surprise. It was getting harder and harder to detect. As this person approached, it was as if he didn't exist in front of him. His existence was disappearing and merging with the universe. This wasn't the disappearance of his body, but his aura, his life itself, was disappearing. It was as if he had become one with this space, and his existence was an anomaly. This feeling made Red Hero very uncomfortable. He waved his hand and the sword edge cut into Jianghu's body bit by bit. No blood. The sword edge flashed. Jiang Feng and Red Hero passed by each other. Red Hero looked at Jiang Feng again. In front of Jiang Feng, spots of blood appeared and gradually expanded. Red Hero narrowed his eyes. There was blood, but why wasn't there just now? Jiang Feng slowly fell down and fell into the starry sky. At this time a punch came from afar. It was from Ancestor Qin. He held Wang Xiaoyu and punched Red Hero with the starry sky fist. Red Hero was disgusted. He hated the scene of Ancestor Qin holding Wang Xiaoyu. He hated such human emotions. The sword edge reversed and slashed. The starry sky fist was cut off. Ancestor Qin knew he couldn't live, so he punched. But in the next moment the scene in front of him changed. A woman appeared beside him. It was Lu Hui. "Senior, are you okay?" Lu Hui teleported away with Ancestor Qin. Ancestor Qin shouted, "Go!" In the distance, Red Hero sneered and raised his sword. Teleportation? If it weren't for the unknown rules, Lu Yin wouldn't have been able to escape his attack range, let alone a junior. The sword slashed down. Ancestor Qin punched out with the starry sky fist. The sword cut through Ancestor Qin's arm. At the same time, it swept behind him and killed Lu Hui. Ancestor Qin's severed arm fell, but he didn't have time to care. He watched Lu Hui fall to the ground, completely dead. So what if she teleported? Anyone who participated in this battle would die. Red Hero raised his sword again. The sword just now was aimed at Lu Hui. This junior could teleport, which made him hate her. This sword would end her. This war was a disaster for the three universes, but in his eyes, it was just a game. A game to take revenge on these people for scheming against him. A scream suddenly sounded and Red Hero looked in a direction. Was that Xianling? In the distance, karma visible to the naked eye soared into the sky and covered the Tianyuan universe. Xianling soared into the sky. It was Nanling. Following closely behind the South Spirit was the Azure Lotus Guard. Mr. Mu had finally removed the Red Lotus tomb. Red Hero looked into the distance and sneered. These humans were so stupid. They had worked so hard to seal Nanling, but now she was released. They were really at their wits' end. Chapter 4476. In the Nine Firmaments universe, Lu Yin looked in the direction of the Tianyuan universe. Had the Red Lotus tomb been removed? What? There were only 3 people who could remove the Red Lotus tomb. One was him, the other was Alarmed Guard, and the last was Mr. Mu. He and the Alarmed Guard were both in the Nine Firmaments, so it was naturally impossible. Then could it be Mr. Mu? The Red Lotus tomb had always been placed in the Tianyuan universe to prevent immortal plume theft. Only Mr. Mu could remove the Red Lotus tomb. Why would Mr. Mu remove the Red Lotus tomb? Even with the addition of Azure Lotus Guard, there was still the South Spirit. The South Spirit was also extremely powerful and could teleport. It was even more threatening than the Godly King. Mr. Mu could not be so irrational. On the other side of the Tianyuan universe, far away from the Godly King, the South Spirit flew around and chirped happily. It had finally come out. Humans, you are dead. It wanted to take revenge on humans and completely destroy them. On the other side, Azure Lotus Guard looked around and saw Mr. Mu and Chu Songyun, who were struggling against the Godly King. He also saw the miserable Lu Yin Blood Tower Guard and the others. He also saw Master Qingqiao, who was blocking the Blood Tower Guard. Was this a desperate situation? The Death Universe? The Mud Kingdom's Mud Kingdom? Humans, you are finished. The South Spirit flapped its wings and teleported towards Azure Lotus Guard. I want you to pay the price. Azure Lotus Guard's expression was solemn as he allowed the South Spirit to teleport and attack with its claws. He slowly raised his hand and faced the South Spirit. No one knew what he did, but there was a soft sound in the void. Countless people's vision distorted as the South Spirit's body suddenly flew backwards as if there was an unstoppable force pushing it away. The South Spirit spat out blood as it smashed through the stars and flew out of the Tianyuan universe. It stabilized itself with great difficulty and looked at Azure Lotus Guard in disbelief. How was this possible? Impossible. He had actually pushed it back with one strike. Impossible. This human had clearly thought of all sorts of ways to seal it together with his own body. They should have perished together. Why did that happen just now? Lu Yin also saw this scene and his pupils shrank. What had happened? Master Qingqiao sighed. In the end, he had allowed Azure Lotus to attack. In order to deal with the danger brought by Wang Wen, his external preparations had been cut off, but his internal preparations were still there. For example, Azure Lotus Guard's Azure Lotus Guard. All of this was to confuse Wang Wen. Qinglian was the most talented cultivator he had ever seen, second only to Lu Yin. In order to find Xuanhuan and deal with Red Hero and the unknown, he sacrificed his cultivation realm and killed himself. It was the same for Qinglian. He had been suppressing his strength all this time. Even when he fought against Red Hero, he didn't expose his strength. That was because the person he really wanted to deal with was Xuanhuan. Is the karma celestial phenomenon covering the three universes to deal with Red Hero's law? Yes and no. The karma constellation was unceasingly consuming karma energy. The Green Lotus had no way to stop it. If it wasn't for the karma constellation, his strength would have long been discovered by Xuanhuan. Why was he able to lead the death universe away by himself? Because his existence was valuable to the dead universe. Why did he seal himself in the battle against Xianling? Because if he didn't seal himself, the unknown would be even more fearful. Perhaps this battle would have happened long ago. Qinglian's true strength was enough for Xuanhuan to expose himself early. They didn't know how powerful the Nine Bases era was, but Green Grass Masters knew very well that the Green Lotus era was extremely powerful. Its existence somewhat exceeded his imagination. Qinglian was equivalent to Lu Yin, who had cultivated for an endless amount of time. Impossible. Nanling shrieked. The feather god spear pierced towards Qinglian. With the 10,000 Daos unification as its core, its feather god spear was far stronger than Si Qin and Mingyu. These humans couldn't possibly block it. Qinglian's expression was calm. Facing the feather god spear, he raised his hand and pointed. Thousand Faces Karma, Heavenly Finger Wheel. In an instant the world shook. Whether it was the Xuanhuan universe, the Ninth Heaven universe, the spiritualized universe, or even the consciousness universe that was being reactivated, they were all covered by a sudden power. That was the power of karma. That was the karma constellation. The karma constellation appeared in an instant. Like a wild beast, it slammed into the death universe and the white light of the God King. Then, a strand of karma was separated and turned into a heavenly finger wheel. The heavenly finger wheel collided with the feather god spear. The feather god spear could pierce through anything. No external force could stop it. It would definitely pierce the opponent's body. Under countless gazes, the feather god spear pierced through karma and pierced Qinglian's fingertip. A drop of blood was imprinted in everyone's eyes. Qinglian was injured by the feather god spear, but the heavenly finger wheel also hit Nanling. Nanling wanted to teleport away, but the feather god spear couldn't hit Qinglian because the feather god spear used the 10,000 Daos unification as its core. Without the core, how could it be powerful? If Nanling wanted the feather god spear to pierce Qinglian, he would have to take the heavenly finger wheel's attack. In the past, neither Lu Yin nor Qinglian had thought of exchanging injury for injury and facing the feather god spear head-on. But at this moment, Qinglian had done so. Exchanging injury for injury. From the process it was equal, but from the result, the Green Lotus Imperial Finger was pierced through. A drop of blood was extremely glaring, but the southern spirit spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body was sent flying into the distance again with a wail. Along the way, her feathers were scattered and dyed red with blood as they drifted down. Lu Yin watched in shock. He couldn't believe it either. Was that Qinglian? Scenes related to Qinglian kept appearing in his mind. The sentence that left the deepest impression was, "Two of me are equivalent to a fishing civilization." This sentence was said by the Blue Lotus Emperor himself. He believed that the two of them were comparable to the fishing civilization. At first Lu Yin believed it. At that time, his vision was limited to each universe. At that time, it would take him a year to travel from the Nine Firmaments universe to the Xuanhuan universe. However, the more he traveled, the more he realized that this sentence was wrong. Even if there were 3 or 4 Qinglian, they wouldn't be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with a true fishing civilization, let alone 2. The weakest fishing civilization they had encountered was the Dark Enlightenment civilization. However, with the Dark Enlightenment civilization's absolute methods and talents, even Patriarch Shan's 7 Treasures Heavenly Toad clan would be defeated in a long period of time. A God King from a Divine Realm civilization could erupt with strength that matched the 3 laws of the universe. The Mud Kingdom's Mud Kingdom, not to mention the unfathomable unknown and death universe. Although Lu Yin remembered this sentence, he had taken it as a joke. He thought that Qinglian had misjudged because he didn't understand the concept of distance. Now he knew that he was the one who had misjudged. It was obvious that Qinglian was also a part of the scheme against Xuanhuan. On the surface they were all scheming against Red Hero, and they were indeed scheming against Red Hero. However, the deeper part was actually Xuanhuan. It was only now that Lu Yin understood why Master Qingqiao, who had killed Mijin Xiangyu, was safe and sound. There were as many as a dozen Eternal Realm experts at the peak of the three universes. In the eyes of the top powerhouses, ordinary Eternal Realm experts were not as important as they thought. Therefore, the Nine Firmaments universe still kept Master Qingqiao alive. He had killed Mi Jin Xiangyu. Xueta Xiangyu and Jingmen Xiangyu were extremely resentful of Master Qingqiao, but they were suppressed by Qinglian. The reason was that Mi Jin Xiangyu had said before his death that he was considerate of mankind. However, those words could be listened to or not. Now they knew the truth. Thus, before sealing the Red Lotus tomb with the South Spirit, he had specifically reminded Lu Yin not to hand the Red Lotus tomb over to the unknown. He could have used the power of the unknown to open the Red Lotus tomb and eliminate the South Spirit, but Azure Lotus was unwilling to do so. That was because Nanling was not a real threat. If he appeared in the unknown, he would definitely be seen through by the unknown. At this moment, Qinglian Xiangyu was the real Qinglian Xiangyu. He had comprehended the karmic celestial phenomenon, lived the longest in the three universes, and had the highest talent. Xueta Xiangyu and Jingmen Xiangyu were also shocked. They did not expect Qinglian Xiangyu to suppress Nanling. When Xianling attacked, they had to fight hard to resist. Mr. Mu also understood why Master Qingqiao had specifically reminded him to remove the Red Lotus tomb once the human civilization was in danger. Of course, he was not stupid. He removed the Red Lotus tomb, released Qinglian Xiangyu, and also released the more troublesome Nanling. However, Master Qingxiao's reminder and the current desperate situation forced him to do so. Of course, what really drove him to do so was knowing the identity of Master Qingqiao. A Master Qingqiao was not enough to make Mr. Mu believe, but Mi Jin Xiangyu was different. Fortunately, he had listened to him. "Impossible, human, you can't block the Feather God's spear," Nanling hissed. Her eyes were ferocious as she stared at Qinglian Xiangyu. Qinglian Xiangyu said coldly, "Believe it or not, I can kill you." Nanling was furious. She stared at Qinglian Xiangyu. Qinglian Xiangyu did not look at her anymore. He turned to Red Hero, "If I join forces with Lu Yin, we can return Jianghu's freedom." With a thought, he knew everything. Red Hero could appear here because Jianghu was trapped by Wangwen's power. He believed that the three universes would be destroyed in this battle. When the time came, he might have a way to stop Jianghu from breaking his path of ruthlessness. The foundation of all of this was the destruction of the three universes. If not, he could not stop Jianghu. Now that Qinglian Xiangyu had awakened and displayed extraordinary strength, although Red Hero still did not believe that the three universes could survive in such a desperate situation, there was no need to perish together with the three universes. One was Lu Yin and the other was Qinglian Xiangyu. One could teleport and the other was powerful. If the two of them fought to the death, it would not end well. Red Hero was not interested in helping others. Red Hero's eyes flashed. He took a deep look at Qinglian Xiangyu. Then he smiled, "I'm only here to look for the ten-eyed crow. Now that I've found it, I'll leave." With that, he left under Qinglian Xiangyu's gaze. He could not bring the ten-eyed crow with him, but it did not matter. The three universes were about to be destroyed anyway, and the civilizations that had destroyed the three universes did not know that the ten-eyed crow was here. Humanity could not protect it, and it would still belong to him in the end. It was just that the location had changed. Nobody stopped Red Hero from leaving, even though he had heavily injured several experts. Leaving Red Hero behind meant that there was no hope for the three universes. Lu Yin sighed. Red Hero had left, and Qinglian Xiangyu had returned. Humanity's hope had increased, even if it was only by a millionth. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.